This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk on an absolutely glorious spring day here in Winnipeg. And what a perfect day to welcome the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, or at least the rookies, back to the field. Although Zach Caleros out there throwing with all the quarterbacks, Willie Jefferson, some of the veterans milling around, getting ready for the weekend when the entire training camp starts in earnest. But great to have the Blue Bombers back. And, of course, one more day till Goldeyes opening night on the road. And then, of course, they're back for their home opener next Friday here in the Peg. So lots of good things going on. And, of course, Stanley Cup Playoffs, 2 huge games tonight for the Canadian teams involved. The Toronto Maple Leafs facing elimination, and the Edmonton Oilers looking for some pushback after they got pushed around by the Vegas Golden Knights in game number 3. Vegas up in that series 2-1. And, of course, Paul Maurice's Panthers up 3-0 on the Toronto Maple Leafs. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We will focus in a bit more on the Oilers-Vegas series in the first segment with a guest, because my pal and lockshop partner, Dustin Nielson in Edmonton, is going to jump on. And I know Dusty's going to want to talk about the Oilers, but we'll also maybe get his thoughts on a quick early look ahead to CFL season. Of course, you also know Dustin Nielson is the voice of the TSN, mostly in the West, for all our Western games on the TSN, CFL on TSN. So it's going to be a real fun show. We will, of course, talk Jets and Jets offseason. Murat has been cooking up a lot of the big questions and topics around the club at The Athletic. Murat will join us a little bit later on in the program. And we're also going to get ready for the Centennial Cup. You know, we've got the Ice playing on Friday and Saturday, but the National Junior A Championships is also here in our province beginning on Thursday. Host Portage Terriers, MJHL Steinbach Pistons, along with teams from around the country playing for the Centennial Cup. We'll get a little bit of a preview for that in the final half hour with Erik Swar from the Manitoba Junior Hockey League before we get into our Coolbet Lines and see what's kicking for the games tonight over at the betting window. Well, let's get Michael Remis in here to get the party started. What's going on?
It's a hot one out there, Huss. I see General Tom's got the fire in chat. So, yeah, it's good, great temperatures. It's only May 10, which is a shocker. So that's what's going on with me. I don't know, wearing no jacket outside, right?
Yeah. Oh, listen, we're not even, and I've got a hoodie on right now. You really don't need it. I think we're officially into shorts territory every day till probably Halloween.
Yeah, probably, yeah. I don't know. I'm still in, I'm a big joggers guy. So I'm joggers, and it's actually really cold down here. So I'm wearing a hoodie and sweats underneath. You can't see them. So
what's the difference between sweats and joggers?
I think joggers are tighter and like more form fitting. Isn't that? I think so, and maybe more fashionable.
Is that the male version of Lulus?
Yeah, I think so. I think more. If someone on chat wants to help, I think more fashionable too. Like I got a pair of sweats. I got a pair of sweats, but like I'm not leaving the house in those. They're old, but these joggers are, man, I look good in them. So I'm a big joggers guy.
Shorts on today. You know, speaking of shorts, this is a bit of nonsense before we get into the program. I was with a friend last night, and I dropped a line about jorts, and he thought that I had just invented up that term. I said, well, what are you talking about? Jorts. Like, he goes, well, what are jorts? I said, they're jean shorts. He goes, you got to be kidding me. And we went down a bit of an internet rabbit hole. I did really enjoy, some comedy site did a thing on the history of jorts. But Remo, everyone knows what jorts are, right?
Yes, yeah, it's a common thing. Yeah.
Yeah, this was not some edgy
No.
underground term for jean shorts. I mean, everyone knows what jorts are,
Yes.
except for my friend Kyle.
Jorts is a common phrase. Everyone knows jorts. Come on, Kyle. Never
And
heard
we
of it? You
are-
go to Urban Dictionary, is it on there?
Listen, not only is it in Urban Dictionary, it's in the Webster's Dictionary.
Oh, it is?
It was added in 2013. So
Oh, that's a long time ago. 2013, believe it or not, is 10 years ago, which is kind of messed up. I noticed that when Daft Punk's Random Access Memories 10th Anniversary Edition comes out this week. And it feels like yesterday, Get Lucky, the song came out. But yeah, but
that's
jorts.
one of my favorite. You know what? That if you were gonna ask me to put together a top 10, like a mixtape, top 10 summer songs,
That's a great summer.
or just good time songs, like I might start with that track. To be like, every time I hear it, you're just in a great mood. It reminds me of good times, some fun road trips, and a
Yes.
time where it didn't matter where you went, you were listening to that song, and all part of the good old days before the pandemic turned everything upside, drove many people nuts, and here we are today. Although, and just quickly before we get to everything else, Remo, I'm not sure if you saw this, but Barstool put out a video of the behind-the-scenes live look at when the Pardon My Take guys, Big Cat and PFT, got informed live by their bosses that their Barstool Van Talk was canceled after one show. And it was wild looking at their reactions and listening to what the people were saying. And Big Cat had tweeted, at the time it felt like it was the worst thing in the world, but looking back, it was the best thing that ever happened to us. And it got me thinking about when, if and ever, the recording of the infamous phone call of February 9th, 2021 gets put out, because I feel the exact same way. It really felt terrible and it sucked at the time. But, now as we're getting ready to talk about heading to the draft and a big offseason and the Bombers back, doing what we're doing on Winnipeg Sports Talk, I feel thankful for that phone call every day.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey here for Winnipeg Sports Talk coming into year 2 now. So
Year 3.
Yeah, I guess this is technically year 3. We've completed 2 years. I mean, even that feels like I don't know. Feels like we just started here. So there we go.
We are cooking up some great things for June, though, and working with. Hopefully, we'll be doing our shows down in Nashville, Tennessee, for the draft. It's going to be a huge week for the Winnipeg Jets, and working on with a couple of our great sponsors to try to make that happen. So we'll let you know how those plans are going. But of course, right now, we'll get to the draft and we'll get to all the offseason talk with Murat coming up in a bit. But a couple big games tonight in the National Hockey League, but 2 big performances last night. I have to say, for all the drama and the overtime and everything we had in the first round of the playoffs, the second round has been kind of a dud. Like, game by game, they've all been blowouts for the most part.
Yes, I was thinking that yesterday. Like, round 2 has totally sucked. Every game is a blowout. Like, the Dallas-Seattle series is tied 2-2. Has there been one good game in that series? This Carolina-New Jersey, Carolina's winning 3-1. No game has been close. Even Edmonton-Vegas, they played 3 games. I mean, Vegas dominated 1 and 3. Edmonton dominated 2. The Toronto series, I think, has been the closest. Games 1 and 2 for Toronto, and there was an overtime game in there as well. But yeah, round 2, you made such a high of round 1 with the upsets and close games and game 7s, and I think Seattle, Dallas, they seem to be headed for 7. But round 2, major dud, and I don't know. I'm still watching it though. I can't really complain, but they just haven't been. Every game has been blowout.
Yeah, I went out last night with a couple pals for some wings, and we sat down. It was 1-1 in the Carolina-Jersey game, and about 8 minutes later, it was 5-1. Like mix in a save once in a while, guys. It was, it was. I mean, that one just got away on New Jersey really, really quickly. And you know what? They did not have much stream, according to David Severinson.
Oh, what did they have?
They didn't have a lot of pushback. It's the word of the playoffs. And I'm not sure whether we would have heard of this as much if we didn't have Rick Bowness's incredible rant that was heard around the National Hockey League. But Jersey was pointing the fingers at themselves last night. They did not have any pushback. And I don't know, do you have the clip of Severinson after the game?
Yeah, David Severson. Yeah, he said, so I guess after the game, Lindy Ruff said that they got the lead and then stopped playing. They were up 1-0 in that game. And then Severson says after they didn't have a lot of pushback. And I agree, like, were people saying this a lot before the Jets loss in Game 5? Like, was pushback a common term, or are we now just hearing it more since the bonus post game? And every time someone says, like, I'm like, every time like Elliot or Kevin Bieksa says it on the broadcast, my ears pretty much like, oh, pushback, there it is. And now, like, I don't know, I never had an ear for it before. Maybe people said it all the time, and I never know, but I feel like we're noticing it quite a bit.
It is a great point. I have a feeling that our ears are more uniquely trained to identify pushback in any statement after the end of the Jets season. And it's not like this is something that has never been said before. But I don't know, around the playoffs, and I give Rick Bowness a lot of the credit, I think that has been the key word of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And we'll see if the Leafs have any pushback tonight. We'll see if the Oilers can push back after their loss in Game 3. And according to the New Jersey Devils and David Severson, they did not have the pushback after Carolina brought it to them after they were up 1-0 in that game last night.
And here's the clip. Hold on. I screwed something up here. God, I'm trying to do a perfect show, not
Fired.
Yeah. Fired. Okay,
yes.
Okay, here
Nicole
it is.
J. Bones is a trendsetter. Here's what Severson had.
Everyone's saying Bones should be getting like royalties now for the term pushback. Like, I do wonder, before we get into the clip, like, did like all the Jets, who claim to never listen to what the media says or whatever, so they saw the video. I don't know how they saw it. Were they on social media? Did someone send them the video? That was my big question for the Jets. Like, they all saw him say that. How? But how?
Their phones all blew up as it was happening from any of their friends that were paying attention going, oh my God, Bones just went off.
Yeah.
And very quickly, they were probably walking out, watching it on their phones, and probably had a very sad night at the end of the season, and then a very quiet flight home from Vegas to get ready for a big Saturday meeting the media before they went their separate ways for the year.
All right, here's Severson after New Jersey lost yesterday in Game 4.
Well, like I said, we got the wind taken out of ourselves real bad there in the second period, and it was unfortunate. We're second round of the playoffs. We're, now we're facing elimination. So there wasn't any pushback from us, and that was unfortunate. And it's not fun, obviously, losing that way. And then we didn't, give our fans in the cheer about tonight too. So that's on us and as players and as the team. And now we got a challenge ahead of us to climb back into this thing.
Yeah, only one more chance to push back and get back into this series. I'll say this about Jersey, though, Reem. I think a lot of people wrote them off after losing the first two games at home in convincing fashion to the Rangers in round number 1. And having survived that, having come back and won 4 of 5, I do think that's a recent experience that they can lean on. That being said, though, this Carolina Hurricane team, how good would they be if they had Pacioretty, if they had Svechnikov, if they had Teravainen? I give so much credit to Rod Brindamore with what he's done, the culture that he's created in that room, and the fight that they give for a full 60 minutes pretty much each and every night. It is going to be a real uphill climb, but I have no doubt that the Devils will bring it in Game 5 and at least put their best on the line if they're going to go out that way.
Okay, one thing about pushback, when writing it, is it one word or two?
It's a great question. Great question.
Murat,
I've been wondering it.
I'll ask Murat maybe, because he's a writer. I'm not. He's a big J journo, so I think he would have an eye. I always get confused with some hockey terms like offside, 1 or 2, or is there a hyphen? There's a couple others that I always get mixed up with. But, how about Jordan Martinook? Like, I took basically every Carolina player in a pool I'm in, and they're doing pretty well, but I don't have Jordan Martinook, and he's got 9 points in 4 games against the Devils after having 0 points in round 1. Absolutely incredible run for him, and they are missing Teravainen, as you said, Svechnikov and Pacioretty, and they're everyone wrote them up. They were a popular upset pick in round 1 to the Islanders, and here they are. And as I said, I think last week, Rod Brind'Amour is never getting Coach of the Year consideration because they're good every year. But you knew after a loss, these guys are going to bounce back. I think Slavin and Shea had a pretty bad game in Game 3, and they all really shut down New Jersey, who looked unstoppable with Jack Hughes leading the way. So credit to the Carolina. Could we see? I'm bracing for a Carolina, Florida, where it's Paul Maurice coaching against his former player,
the Maurice Bowl.
Rod Brind'Amour. Although so I think Brind'Amour was there when he coached.
Yeah,
I should actually. Or was he in Philly?
No, I'm pretty sure he was there at least one of the 2 stints.
Yeah, because Laviolette coached when they won the Cup.
Yeah,
he was there. Or he was in there for the 2002 one. Okay, good. I'm not getting
by the
myself.
way, impromptu, why not question of the day for our friends at Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. Don't look this up, people. Is pushback one word, pushback, or is it 2 words, push, space, back? Let us know in the chat. We will ask Murat about this a little later on.
People are saying it's 2 words, you illiterates. But some people are saying, like, when you're saying they didn't have pushback, then I think it is 1 word.
Yeah, I'm not sure you can claim us to be illiterate because this is a question on the program.
Well, it is. It is 2 words, but I think they come together for 1 word when you're talking about a pushback of a team.
Yeah, well, put it this way: in Bones's speech after the season, was pushback 1 word? I mean, I know, yes, push and back are 2 words. We all agree on that. We are familiar with those being words on their own. But in this case, put together, is it 1 word? Listen, we're on the case. Let us know and let us know in the comments. Dallas is back. And speaking of pushback, to use a term that we're saying over and over again, they had it last night. We didn't talk a lot about the situation on the weekend going into Game 3, but there was, another, and I mean, I hate to say this, we're almost numb to this, seeing on the news some mass shooting in the United States. But there was one in Allen, Texas, which I believe is just outside of Dallas, and some of the scenes, if you've seen them, are, as horrifying as anything you'll see. But Peter DeBoer had a very heartfelt address, not as much speaking about hockey and about the game, but about that event. And you do wonder how much that was maybe in the minds of the Dallas Stars. Now, I'm not suggesting that, had them, not prepared to play a solid game. I mean, there were some things that happened in game number 3 that, were really unfortunate. A tight first period, and then Heiskanen takes that one in the face. Puck goes in, he goes to the dressing room, and bang, 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 they score 4 in about 6 minutes, and the game's effectively over. But we knew how important last night was going to be for the Dallas Stars, and I hesitated to do it because Seattle has burned me so many times. We did ride with Dallas last night, and they got it done. 6-3, finally really getting to Grubauer. Joe Pavelski getting in, and how about Max Domi and his performance so far in the playoffs for the Dallas Stars, Reem?
Yeah, what a pickup. We talked about Max Domi coming to the Jets, as a possible candidate. Would they look to get him? And this guy, he was a playoff player last year for Carolina, and this was a really smart play by the tanking Blackhawks to sign Domi, knowing fully well they would trade him at the deadline. And here he is with point-per-game player, 10 points in 10 games with Dallas. And shout out to Joe Pavelski, scored a power play goal. He's now in a tie for 7th all-time in playoff power play goals. And the NHL put out that list yesterday. I mean, this is like all Hall of Fame names. And I do wonder, is Joe Pavelski's career like kind of underrated here? just the time that he put in with San Jose, and he was on Team USA Olympics as well. And they made the Cup final.
He was on Philly instead of San Jose or the Rangers or somewhere on the East Coast on a bigger team, not forgotten out in San Jose, even though he was on great teams that a lot of people never saw. I honestly think that he'd be thought of a little bit differently, but you're right. And the fact that he continues to do it at this age is simply amazing.
Well, he had the 4-goal game and they lost. Like, he came back and scored 4 goals after that huge hit he took from Matt Dumba. So, I mean, this guy, he's been a playoff performer for a while, and it was weird seeing him at Dallas, but he's making such a big impact for them. As I look for that graphic that they put out, I should have saved it, but I did not. But, I mean, the names that are ahead of him are like Gretzky, Mike Bossy, Brett Hull, Lidstrom, like all legendary players. And there's Joe Pavelski, tied for 7th all time in power play goals.
One other thing, and this is going to totally trigger you, but they also put out a thing that Joe Pavelski moves to 2nd all time in Dallas Stars / Minnesota Wild or Minnesota North Stars franchise history for goals in a playoff series. And it did get me thinking about the Minnesota records in the NHL. But yeah, I guess all the North Star records are part of the Dallas franchise. We all know that there's issues with the Winnipeg Jets records and where they are. But the only guys that have scored more, here's a couple blasts from the past. 7 in a playoff series. Steve Payne, I believe, and Tony McKegney. How about that?
Oh my God. Okay, this is what here's the most power play goals. And I'll say this about the record. I'm seeing that a lot with Whalers, Hurricanes too. And if the Hurricanes make the conference final, I thought this would be their 5th conference final, and it was all in Carolina, which kind of blew my mind there because they had some great years. They're not that successful, but I mean, this has been a great franchise. And as for the records, Huss, I mean, the only reason why I had issues is because there's, you have the original Jets and Jets 2.0, so there is confusion. I think there's a confusion with the North Stars and the Wild, but I don't want to get too. But here's the list: most power play goals in playoff history. Pavelski in a tie for 28th. But there's ahead of him Lemieux, Lidstrom, Ciccarelli, Bossy, Gretzky, Hull. Quite a list there.
Where's Draisaitl? Give him another couple of weeks, and he'll probably be 4th or 5th on the league in the league. Speaking of which, we are going to be talking about the Edmonton Oilers coming up in just a minute. But I'll throw this out, and maybe we'll talk more about this with Murat later on. But as we prepare for the possibility that 1 or 2 of the Jets' top centers might be on their way out this offseason, who's coming back? And certainly through trades, you'd be looking to try to make something happen, with that. But I think it's maybe a younger player. But with the very light free agent class, and obviously free agency is not normally the place where the Jets do most of their damage, you do wonder if Max Domi, who had to sign a 1-year deal last year, might be a fit. Born here in Winnipeg, Ty Domi's spoken extensively on how much he loved his time here. I mean, I think there'd be a lot of neat storylines with Max coming back and really trying to, I think there'd be opportunity for him to play center top 6 here if those players were gone. And listen, as bad as the Blackhawks were this year, I mean, Max Domi was productive. 60 games, 18 goals, 31 assists, 49 points. Is it a step back from the players that, you had last year in Dubois and Scheifele? If that's the case, probably. But it's part of the situation with where they're at. And if they're not able to get that top center to replace one of those 2 guys, and I think that's far easier said than done, I'm not sure that Max Domi on a shorter term deal might not be a fit for Winnipeg, and might be something unlike just a standard free agent that there might be a way the Jets could get it done. We'll talk about that, as I said, Murat coming up a little bit later on the program as well. Don't forget, as I mentioned right off the top, Gold Eyes opening game is tomorrow. We're counting down until the 19th for the Fish home opener, Friday, May 19th. I had a great chat with Andrew Collier last week about some of the new items at the ballpark. And of course, we'll get a chance to see Greg Taggart, the new manager and the new team. So get to goldeyes.com, season tickets, group tickets, mini packs, all there for you. And count yourself in for the big ball game a week from Friday for the Gold Eyes home opener on May 19th. Again, big thanks to our friends at Modern Man. Had a great time at their grand opening over on Pembina Highway. They'll be doing another one for the new location on Plessy in a couple weeks. Modern Man Barbershops, though, now 8 locations in Winnipeg, featuring a variety of grooming services for men, haircuts, beard shaping, shaves, color services, and more. Book your look via modernmanbarber.com and follow them on Instagram at Modern Man Barbershops. It's feeling like summer around here. And make 2023 the year you take the plunge with Aquatech. Visit aquatech.ca to design your own custom pool. Their team can provide on-the-spot financing from designers as well as financing options that suit you. And with thousands of renos as their foundation, let Aquatech upgrade any space in your home as well. Hey, it's Mother's Day this weekend. Give mom the ultimate staycation destination this Mother's Day and get on one of these projects. Over $1,000 off select spas, pools, and home rental projects. Plus, visit them on Instagram and enter to win mom $1,000 towards a she shed. You know, she can throw in that she shed, maybe some batteries from our pals over at Manitoba Battery. They're celebrating their 10th anniversary right now and getting ready for summer, blowing out golf cart batteries at the lowest prices in town. 6-volt golf cart batteries are $167. 8-volt golf cart batteries are $177. And those prices include free delivery anywhere within city limits. And when you return your cores to Manitoba Battery, you'll receive another $17.50 off what's already the lowest price in Manitoba for golf cart batteries. Get them now so you can be ready for May long weekend and summer fun. Sale on now until May 6th, 1026 Logan Avenue, and online at manitobabattery.com. And Dusty's coming up right now. We will talk a little CFL as well as Bomber rookies are in camp. Camp gets going on the weekend, and we are just a couple weeks away from getting back out to IG Field, meeting up at the Rum Hut and enjoying the great taste of Canadian Club. And, of course, CC and Ginger. You can pick up Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey at your local Manitoba Liquor Mart. And CC and Ginger now available 473-milliliter cans at beer vendors, too. If you don't see it, ask for it. And you'll definitely get ready to have a couple of those out at IG Field. All right, let's talk a little puck and maybe a little pigskin with my pal, partner from the Lock Shop. Subscribe on YouTube at Lock Shop Bets. Just had an episode for tonight's games as well as the golf starting tomorrow. And of course, a big night in Edmonton where Dustin Nielson is headquarters and the king of the AM Nasty. What is what's going on? How are you?
I got to tell you, listening to you weave all of those sponsors together was just brilliant. Just absolutely brilliant. Like with the she shed. And you know what she can store in there? Batteries. I was just like, this guy's killing it right now. I thought you were coming to me and then you transitioned to Canadian Club. Brilliant stuff, buddy. That's a pro's pro right there.
You know what? Listen, it makes it so much more fun. It's a personal touch. Our sponsors are the reason why we make this happen. We could record them, but it's better to do it this way.
Yeah, no, I love it.
And the greatest compliment I have ever received was from somebody in the chat that referred to me as the Connor McDavid of ad reads. And I'll tell you what.
Wow.
I will take that. And I certainly am getting my 10,000 hours in doing it. But hey, we've got great support from folks that are making this show happen. And it's certainly fun to do it. Speaking of Connor McDavid, what did the captain have to say about a very underwhelming home performance in Game 3 where they got the early goal? Laurent Brossoit got knocked out and it was all Vegas after that point.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, the one thing that the Oilers might have going for them here, Huss, is that they're not delusional. Like they weren't trying to be like, tough break here or there. They knew that they played horrible in Game 3. They knew it was their worst game of the playoffs. And Connor McDavid, straight out now, it's not some sort of Mark Messier type of guarantee, but Connor McDavid did say that he thinks that his team will bring their best game in Game 4. And if they're able to do that, if they can find some success 5-on-5, then they should probably be okay. But they cannot be as bad as they were in Game 3. And they weren't great in Game 1 either. Leon Draisaitl had that phenomenal 4-goal night. But 5-on-5 in this series so far, it's been all golden nights. And the Oilers down the stretch did prove to be a pretty good 5-on-5 team. But I think this transition from LA to Vegas is taking a little bit longer than we expected.
Well, and to be honest, I mean, there's a lot of people watching this show right now that are probably remembering what happened with the Jets and the Vegas Golden Knights. And it was weird. The Jets power play will not be ever mentioned in the same category as Edmonton's, but they made the most of their power play opportunities in round one, which I think maybe covered up just how strong the Vegas Golden Knights were at 5-on-5. And listen, it's one thing to do it maybe down along the depth. You don't expect, though, a line that has Draisaitl and McDavid to not basically have their way with whoever they're playing right now. And listen, this is a team that seems to be built deep, 1 to 12 forward. I mean, the blue line's looking good. The Oilers have to solve the Vegas Golden Knights at 5-on-5 because as great as that power play is, pretty tough to win a 7-game series just leaning on 5-on-4s.
Well, yeah, right. And the Oilers can score 5-on-5. It's how do they defend 5-on-5, right? That's always been the issue with the Oilers. And I'm not just putting it on the defense. I know Darnell Nurse and Cody Ceci have taken a lot of heat the last couple of days here, and justifiably so. I mean, they were not good last game, but it's the entire group as a unit defending 5-on-5. It's Draisaitl and McDavid and how they defend 5-on-5. So, I mean, that's probably the key here for the Edmonton Oilers. And if they're going to get back, they're not going to win this series by just lighting up the power play 4 times and winning 4 games that way. If you're going to beat the Golden Knights, and if you're going to advance, or you're going to come out of the West, or you're going to win the Stanley Cup, you have to be able to get the job done 5-on-5. And against the Golden Knights so far, they simply haven't. And I think one of the main issues here, and we'll see what happens tonight, at the morning skate today, Zach Hyman was not on the ice. He got banged up in that last game, finished the game, but didn't practice yesterday, wasn't on the ice for the morning skate. You split up McDavid and Draisaitl, because McDavid and Draisaitl have been, they've been fine apart this year. I mean, the team is winning a bunch of games when they were apart, put them together early in the Kings series, which I think was necessary against the Kings. I don't think you have to have those guys together loaded up on the same line against the Golden Knights. I think you're probably better off getting them on separate lines and kind of forcing the Golden Knights' hand a little bit. So we'll see what Jay Woodcroft brings to the table tonight. If they do separate them, obviously they'll need huge games from both McDavid and Draisaitl.
Yeah, no doubt about that. What about the pipes? Like Stewie Skins has been solid. He did get chased. And the weird thing is that, I mean, I think he's got about an 888 or something like that.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, though, that Jack Campbell has not done anything really to inspire much confidence, despite coming in down 3 goals in that game in the first series that they ended up coming back and winning. Are we going to see Jack Campbell, or what will it take for us to see Jack Campbell in this series, and how bad of news would that be for Edmonton's plate?
Yeah, I mean, you got a glimpse of him last game when they pulled Skinner. I just don't think you're at the spot now. This sounds weird to say, but could Jack Campbell give the Oilers the same level of goaltending that Skinner has given them so far in the playoffs? And I think that answer is yes, because Skinner hasn't been great in the postseason so far. A team in front of him has had some defensive breakdowns. Could Jack Campbell give the Oilers the goaltending that Stuart Skinner gave them during the regular season? No. So I think you still have to look at the upside of Stuart Skinner and continue to roll with this. But if they lose tonight, or if Skinner lets in a couple of bad goals early, I don't think Jay Woodcroft will hesitate and go to Jack Campbell, considering what he did in this spot last round, right? Like, that was game 4. The Oilers were down 2-1 and they fell behind 3-0. So they pulled Skinner, put in Campbell. He looked a little bit bumpy along the way, but made some huge saves. And they ended up coming back and winning that game on a Hyman overtime winner that snuck through Korpisalo. So I had a little bit more time for that discussion this time around, but it's still anytime there's a shot on Campbell with the way his regular season went, I think all of Edmonton goes, is that going to go in? Is that going to go in? So I just don't think the level of confidence is there right now. So you stick with Skinner. But if Skinner, if the Golden Knights put up 4 or 5 on Skinner again tonight, and all of a sudden you're facing elimination in game 5, I mean, if Skinner hasn't got the job done at that point, then do you go to Jack Campbell with your season on the line? It's a rather interesting discussion between the pipes, and on the other side with Vegas, man, with Adin Hill. I mean, let's see what happens. I don't mind that for the Golden Knights. I thought the Oilers kind of found a way to expose some of the holes in Laurent Brossoit, but Hill's a little bit different.
Well, and I think Hill has to be coming into tonight with a hell of a lot of confidence. I mean, he went in and shut the door for an entire game. And listen, that's not going to happen again, probably. But I mean, you have that little body of work and have that success. And I mean, that's sort of just confidence, especially for goalies, as weird as they are. Incredibly important. I think that's done a lot for their team coming into tonight. All that being said, we can talk about the goaltenders and we can talk about the lines. I mean, I think that this is what the Leafs have not gotten from their top players. I think the Oilers get that tonight. And I mean, it's hard to ask for anything more from Leon Draisaitl. But I just think that this is going to be a Connor McDavid game. We talked about it on the Lock Shop. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he hits 3 points, maybe more tonight. And if that happens, we're going to be talking about a best of 3.
Yeah, they should be in a pretty good spot if he shows up tonight. Once again, the Oilers should get theirs offensively. It was very weird last game. The Oilers are usually good coming out of that game again. They came out of that series against the Kings, and everybody's like, oh, the Kings, pretty solid defensive team. The Oilers were averaging over 4 goals per game in the first round of the playoffs. Like, the Oilers are going to score goals. So if those guys can step up defensively and you mix in a few power plays, it should be the recipe for success. And then you got a 2-2 series, and this thing likely goes the distance like many people thought it would.
Hey, I've got to ask you a question that we were talking about at the start. And of course, you heard Rick Bonus's end of season address to the media. Well, end of season after Game 5, talking about pushback, no pushback. Is it just us noticing how many more people are using the term pushback when talking about these games in the playoffs because of what Rick Bonus has said? Or have you noticed that is now more the key phrase of the playoffs, the pushback after things go poorly?
I like the pushback. One of the big ones here in Edmonton right now is to a man. To a man. Yeah, we got so Woodcroft dropped a to a man. And then I think Rashog yesterday, or Gager on my show, dropped a to a man. And then we had Jamie McLennan on today, and he dropped a to a man. Like, whenever anything doesn't go well, to a man in that room, they know they need to be better. So you could really tie it together. To a man in that room, they know they need to have that pushback. This is playoff hockey, right? Like, it works out extremely well. Both of those are excellent playoff phrases.
Hey, the one guy that did quite a bit of pushing back at the end of Game 2 when things were going the Oilers' way was our old pal, the natural, Evander Kane. I mean, Evander with an all-time quote after that, the F around and find out. I laughed so hard when I saw that old guy with the 91 jersey, F-A, find out.
That was good.
Well done. Well done to whoever did that and put that together. But listen, Evander's made a lot of mistakes, and he's rubbed a lot of people the wrong way over the course of his career. He's getting what really seemed like a last chance, made the most of it. He's now got the contract in Edmonton. Where's Evander at right now with the team? We know how important he can be on the ice, but is this a guy that's actually matured and seemingly kind of found a home going forward for his career?
I'm not down there every day, right? Like, I'll go down and get in the press box and watch these games, but from the outside looking in the market, it sure looks like it. It really does. I mean, he's out and about. He's doing a lot of different charity events. Like, he's done a pretty good job repairing that image and that baggage that he came with when he came to this market. People, when they first got him, they brought him in, and there were some people saying, what are you doing bringing this guy in? And then you know how it is in the world of sports. All of a sudden, a player does well for you and he looks like a great fit, and then it's who cares? Whatever. There's no history here. Like, it's a fresh start here in Edmonton. So I think Oilers fans for the most part have given him a fresh start, and I honestly believe that he's taken advantage of that. Now it's interesting because last year in the playoffs he was excellent. This year in the playoffs, and he was banged up through the season, obviously with the injury on the wrist. But he's been little roller coaster-ish, kind of like Hyman and Nuge has just kind of been on the down path so far here in the playoffs. Kane has been excellent at times. And then you saw what he did in Game 2, but then in Game 3 at the end of the first period, he goes and takes just a stupid penalty. And you're like, what are you doing? Like, you need to be smarter than that. So, they could use a big game from him. Like, Evander Kane technically hasn't had that big game so far in the playoffs. And Draisaitl and McDavid have been great, but Kane's been quiet. Nuge has been non-existent. And Hyman had that overtime winner in Game 4. He's quiet, but now he's banged up. So this is that core, right? These are the 5 of the top 6 forwards that this offense basically revolves around. And when 3 of them aren't really going at the expectations, including Kane. Now, Kane can do some other things, but he just has to be smart about it, Huss.
Ekholm, I thought, was maybe the best acquisition at the trade deadline as far as a need of a team and what a player brought to it. I mean, they certainly paid a price to get him. But what have been the returns, in your opinion, on Ekholm? And is he the number one guy now? I mean, Nurse is making a lot of money. Just wondering what the feeling is on Darnell's play through the playoffs up until this point.
Yeah, Ekholm's their best defenseman. I don't even think that's a debate. I mean, if anybody says otherwise, I would completely disagree with them. He has come in. He's been excellent. There's this trickle-down effect that I can get to in a second. Quickly, Nurse has had some good games, but he's also had some games where it's his decision-making that just seems off. And that has a lot of people rattled because of how much money he makes. But, I think Ekholm has done a number of things. They bring in Ekholm, and first of all, you get Ekholm. So there's that. You take some of the pressure off Darnell Nurse, which is excellent. You bumped Kulak down the lineup, so he's your third pair defenseman. He's been outstanding so far in the playoffs. And then you put Ekholm alongside Bouchard and basically salvage this kid's season. I mean, Bouchard has been wonderful since Ekholm came in, and the fact that they've got Ekholm for a few more years, Bouchard must be just in heaven right now. And then you also moved out Barry by bringing in Ekholm, which opened up the power play for Bouchard. So, the trickle-down effect of the Ekholm trade has hit in 4 or 5 different places in this lineup and has really been, I know there's, you make a lot of trades and there's some over-exaggeration. This has been a perfect pickup. Getting Ekholm has been exactly what Ken Holland needed to do for the Edmonton Oilers. And even had a little bit of offensive upside at the end of the regular season. He was scoring a few goals and chipping in there. Hasn't been that way so much in the playoffs so far, but he is their most reliable and steady defender. It's not even a discussion.
What do you make of what's happened to the Buds facing elimination tonight? It has been incredible to see them wilt. And I mean, I'll be honest, that Game 3 performance by the Leafs in some ways sort of felt like, Game 5 for the Jets, but the Jets were facing elimination. They just didn't have it and they were done. I'm going to be fascinated to see how the Leafs bounce back. And I kind of do think they win this game. We talked about it in the lock shop earlier. I just have a hard time imagining a team with that talent getting swept in this fashion. And you wonder what that does to all the goodwill they got by beating the Tampa Bay Lightning. But what do you
There's no more
Leafs?
goodwill. There's no more goodwill. I have to be careful what I say because Leafs fans hate me for the most part.
Yeah. You have a sordid history with Leafs
exactly.
Twitter.
We said this going into the series on the lock shop, man. If they don't take the Florida Panthers seriously early on, the Florida Panthers will kill you. And that's what's happened. I mean, they celebrated like they won the Stanley Cup. They probably thought they were going to get Boston, so had this Boston mindset. And when it wasn't Boston, they're like, hey, it's human instinct. You're like, oh, look at us. We've won a round. We knocked off the Tampa Bay Lightning, who were not the Tampa Bay Lightning that beat the Maple Leafs the previous years. You've added in a guy like Ryan O'Reilly. You got the Stanley Cup experience. Everything's going to be continue to flow along smoothly. And then you run into Sergei Bobrovsky and Matthew Tkachuk in a really deep Florida Panthers team, and they bite you early. And then in the most critical game of the series, your top guns are a no-show. So I'd like to say that when they beat Tampa, I thought I was like, okay, well, here they go. This is it for the Leafs. But I mean, we laid it out prior to that series. If they didn't take Florida seriously and were a little fat and happy, the Panthers are too good. Look at the Panthers just accomplished against the Bruins. What they haven't lost in 2 weeks. They've won 6 in a row. So I think the Maple Leafs probably just weren't ready for this series against Florida. It's not like Florida's a significantly better team than the Toronto Maple Leafs, but Florida's clutch players. I don't know how you couldn't have more faith in Barkov and Tkachuk than any of those 4 guys with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Give me those 2 guys any day of the week in this type of situation, and they're proving it right now.
No, it's well, I mean, one way or the other, it's going to be fun to watch from afar, the shrapnel that is around that team at the end of this playoff run, assuming that it ends with them being bounced. It'll be really ugly if they can't get this win tonight and at least have something to show after that win over Tampa. I know you've had you've been coughing a little bit lately. You need to get that voice ready, my friend, because can you believe it? 3 weeks Friday, you're going to be here in the Peg calling a preseason game before we get going with the CFL season.
It was a little strange. I sent out my email to our travel lady saying I'm heading to Winnipeg for that June 2nd game. It's time to book travel again, and I feel like it's kind of gone by quickly, but it hasn't as well. I'm ready to get going again and get the one preseason game, which I'm very much looking forward to. And I'm excited for this season. The quarterback movement in this league like for Bo Levi to leave and go to Hamilton, and then you get Harris and Fajardo switching places. That's real fun. I don't know what's going to happen here in Edmonton, but they go out and bring in Dunbar and Gino Lewis. CFL free agency this year was just terrific. The BC Lions, they lose Rourke, but they've got Vernon Adams from that trade. So it's going to be tough. I know we're going to preview CFL on the Lock Shop coming up this week, and it's going to be tough to get a read on what we should expect from a few of these clubs, buddy, outside of the Bombers, who, once again, how many kickers you guys bringing into camp? Like 7?
Only one that matters. Kickers? The Lucha, man. Sergio Castillo is back.
Castillo's back, too?
Well, exactly. The Elks dropped him last week.
I know they dropped him. I didn't see he got picked up.
1 hour later.
Oh, that must have been why I missed it.
An hour later, Bombers all over it. So, yeah, there'll be a bunch of punters coming in, but Castillo will be back. I was just so pumped because it gave me an opportunity to go into my phone and post the video and pictures of him in the poncho and the luchador mask running around the stadium holding the championship belt after the Bombers won it in 2021. A very popular member of the club, and great to have him back. What is the, I mean, God knows we talked long enough about how long it had been since the Oilers won a home game last year. What is the vibe around this club? What are their expectations this year for a Chris Jones team? I mean, at some point you got to win. It's a 9-team league. I mean, you can't keep being at the bottom for a team that has such a great history and a great fan base that I think will come out a lot more if they think their team is even borderline competitive.
Yeah, I mean, I think, they bring in Victor Cui as the president, and he had a lot of positive things to say since he's taken over, and there's like a little bit of buzz. People are like, oh, look at this guy. Like, he's fired up. The right guy
out with a couple wins
the right
at
guy for the
Commonwealth.
job. But I mean, he could say all he wants right now, but it's time to put up or shut up. It's as simple as that. This team has to win games, and they have to win games to get people back. I'm very interested to see. Like, we know attendance fell off last year. Some of those games are sparsely attended, and I get it. Your team doesn't win at home, but I'm interested to see if they do put together a string of wins at home. Does it start to bring people back, or do you need to have some playoff success sustained for a couple of years to make that happen? So Taylor Cornelius looks like he's going to be the guy again. I love the raw tools of Taylor Cornelius. Like, I want to see more Taylor Cornelius. Big guy, runs well, just has a ridiculous wicked arm. And now they've brought in some pretty good options for him. I mean, Gino Lewis should probably catch a lot of balls that were dropped last year from Cornelius as soon as they sort of connect. They brought in Dunbar. They kept Dylan Mitchell. Like, they've got a pretty good offensive set of weapons. Does Chris Jones have the personnel on defense to help take this team to another level? I guess that's something we'll see. Last year, they had a couple of sort of bigger names on defense, but outside of that, a lot of guys trying to cut their teeth in the league, which usually isn't a recipe for success. So, I mean, I don't want to go out on the big limb here, but I'm going to guarantee they win one at home this year, Huss. But, part of me is like, are you sure? And I do think they will. But it's a matter of how much do they need to win, not just at home, but overall, to start to get people back on board, right?
It'd be nice to win a home opener and sort of, start it early. Yeah. Don't have that being the season. Well, they're out of the playoffs, but can they win a home game?
But they get the Riders here at home. And when you look at the Riders, I don't know what to make of them at this either. So that should be a really good game.
Well, it's funny. I mean, if we take it from what the bookies have to say, our pals over at Coolbet have the odds up for the Grey Cup. Bombers are the favorite at plus 240. Elks are last at 25-1, but the Riders are next at plus 1150. Interesting how long of a long shot the Elks are compared
the Elks
to everybody
are way
else.
Down the list, eh?
Way down. And hey, Chris Jones has won before. I don't think it's happening this year, but I do expect him to be better. When you look around the league, I think we all agree the Bombers are on paper the favorite. Who would you say is the number 2 team right now? If not Winnipeg, who?
I don't even know. Like, I think that's what's happened with that. It's not the Riders. I'm not too sure what happens with Vernon Adams in BC, but I like the core that they have there. I think that they're still going to be a good team. Obviously, it's different with Rourke.
They're number two on the books, plus 550 BC.
I think BC's an interesting one. If Vernon Adams can take advantage of this opportunity, I think he's got the personnel there to still have a pretty good team. Obviously, it's not the Elks. Are the Calgary Stampeders third on that list? Are they fourth?
Ticats 6-1. Stamps Argos 7-1.
Okay, yeah, that's okay. That makes sense. I do think Calgary, like Jake Mayer, is going to be just fine. Dickinson now with an elevated role. I mean, Calgary just always finds players, so the Stampeders are still going to be a very good team. Hamilton comes down to what Bo Levi Mitchell has left in the tank. Obviously, we've been expecting big things from the Ticats for 3-4 years now. Now they've got their quarterback. And Bo should be motivated for sure. Now out east, a new fresh look there. And then we'll see what Kelly does. I think he's like plus 750 to be the MOP. But we don't know what he's going to bring to the table just yet there with the Argos. I mean, came in, put together a drive in the Grey Cup, and that was great and all. But it's a lot different being the quarterback of the Argos for an entire regular season. So I would once again look at this might be a Western take because I watch so many West games. I do all the West games, but I do think there's going to be a few powerhouses in the West.
The Swag Kelly experiment is going to be hilarious because, I mean, he is a big league talent, but I think he's a big league head case too. And how he handles the day-to-day of being the leader on the field of a football team. I'll just say this. He showed that in spot duty, he can go in and play, and he's played in front of big crowds before back in his college career. But I do wonder about, I mean, if he was a DB or if he was a receiver, no worries at all. The quarterback position is so different in professional football. And
they like him though, right? Like they like him.
They do. I mean,
you got the confidence of your team at least, so that's big.
Well, confidence will never be an issue for Swag Kelly. I can personally guarantee you that. Good stuff tonight. Hey, well, we're going to do our Coolbet lines a little bit later on, but I know there's some Oiler fans in the chat. What was the exclusive that you cooked up tonight? I mean, those have been. We're lucky to still be employed by them right now because, to be honest, the Lock Shop and especially your Oilers. Single gamers have not been good for the bottom line for our friends Pat and Jake and the gang over at Coolbet.
Yeah, if you usually beat the hell out of a sponsor or a partner like we have, they usually cut you loose. But here it is tonight. It's still sitting at plus 625. McDavid and Draisaitl both to score. Bouchard with at least 1 point. He's been a monster so far in the playoffs. Oilers in regulation. And just over 5.5 in this game. And it's plus 625, which is actually a little bit of a bigger number than I thought. I guess Oilers in regulation sort of bumps that thing up. But look, I was telling you on Lock Shop earlier in the week, man, like the Oilers' recipe for success when they win is just all these things, right? Like it's usually Draisaitl scores, and McDavid scores. Like this is the script for a win. And if you think the Oilers are going to win tonight, it's a 5-2, 5-3 type of win with their big guys rolling and the power play probably scoring 1 or 2 goals. So I love getting that plus 625. I hopped on it immediately.
Yeah, and we also do have a partner party that we put together from our picks. We will ride with these Canadian teams. I'm going to take the Leafs tonight. It might be insane. I just think that they show something and manage to get this series back to Toronto. We've got the Oilers to win and even that series up. And my lock of the century of the week play, Golden State minus 6.5. And you're the ultimate LeBron guy.
I am.
Lakers fan. You watch all the games, but I don't know how anyone would have confidence that the Lakers would go in on the road and get this done. I've also seen the script for this series, and it's Lakers in 6 winning at home at the Crypto.com arena in a few days.
If the Lakers had the stuff to go into Game 5 tonight and win in Golden State, you might as well just give them the NBA championship right now. Because they're not being stopped. I mean, you go in today against the defending champions with their backs against the wall and beat Steph Curry at home where they're ridiculous. Nobody's going to stop you. So I've watched, I was saying earlier in the Lock Shop today, man, I've watched every single LeBron playoff game of his entire career. And when he gets in certain spots and the team gets in certain spots where they're somewhat comfortable, there has been a tendency for, it's not even like they're going and being let down. It's just like overall the vibe's just not there. So I would think Golden State, they shoot so well at home. I think they probably come out and take care of business tonight. So it's not very often I'll go against them outside of the old emotional hedge, which I've cashed a couple of times here. But a Golden State should win, and they should win big tonight.
Hey, say what's up to our pal LTE, and
I will
keep doing a great job with the nasties there on 1260 in Edmonton.
Hi, Remis, wherever you are. Hey, buddy.
Hey, Dusty. Thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Thanks for sending the link.
Of course.
We may need to have a tag team appearance one point with you and Erik coming on with me and Reem. That would
anytime.
I got a 4 box.
We'll do that around Bombers Elks at some point this season.
That's a great idea. I love it.
Lock that in. All right, pal. Thanks for doing this, man. Great stuff as always.
See you, boys.
All right, there's Dustin Nielson. Again, you can follow our show Lock Shop on Twitter at Lock Shop Bets, and make sure to get on over to the YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button over at Lock Shop Bets as well. We're on YouTube. All right, we're gonna talk some Jets with Murat coming up in a few minutes. But hey, our friends at Vita Health Fresh Market are ready for barbecue season. If you're looking for great prices on natural and organic supplements, beauty products, groceries, and Winnipeg's largest assortment of local products too, Vita Health Fresh Market has you covered. And with barbecue season here, get on down to Vita Health and stock up on some delicious Vita Market grass-fed bison and beef steaks. And the perfect thing to help you digest that red meat, Health First Prime Zyme digestive enzymes. Symptoms like heartburn, gas, bloating, and abdominal pain after meals may be signs you're not digesting food well. Health First Prime Zyme can supplement enzyme levels to break down proteins, carbohydrates, fats, lactose, and reduce digestive discomfort. That way you can enjoy all the delicious food that you're cooking. Vita Health Fresh Market, empowering people to lead healthy lives, 7 Winnipeg locations. You can also order online with local delivery options at myvita.ca. Wallace & Wallace is getting after it right now as Winnipeg's fencing and overhead door specialist, serving residential and commercial customers since 1946. If you need the security and protection of a new fence, or if winter's done a number on your old one, they've got you covered with vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood fences. And if you need a new garage door, Wallace & Wallace has Winnipeg's largest selection of overhead garage doors. 204-452-2700 is the number to make an appointment for a free estimate. You can also visit them at wallacefences.com or pop down to their showroom on Lawson Road off of Kenniston Boulevard. How's the closet looking, fellas, as we get into spring and summer? If you need to up your menswear game heading into the new seasons, head on down to F Apparel. Custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. 15% discount for wedding parties if you need suits for the fellas for the big day. And F Apparel also has a great deal for 2023 high school grads. Purchase a new suit for the young man, and F will throw in a free custom shirt and tie valued at about $150. 190 Smith Street downtown. Make an appointment online at F Apparel, EPHapparel.com. And hey, with this gorgeous weather here, perfect day to grab the crew and head on down to one of the 4 Nick and Nicky DQs. Blizzard season is officially here, the good kind in Winnipeg. New summer blizzard flavors are there. You got your dilly bars, your peanut butter parfaits, all the other classics, not to mention maybe the most underrated and delicious burgers in the fast food game, the stack burgers. Right now at DQ, if you need a ice cream cake or blizzard cake for a party or an event, they'll custom make it for you with whatever you want on it. Hit them up on Instagram at DQ Manitoba to make that happen as well. All right, we've got lots to get to with our good friend Murat Atesh. The mailbag is open and has been answered at the pages of The Athletic. Let's get to it now with Murat. How are you, my friend? You got the cut a little bit? You're kind of getting, this is summer Murat, ready to go full off-season mode. What's going on?
Full off-season. I got the tan going. I've been outside. I got the haircut, might even trim the beard. Don't tell my mom just in case I don't, and then she's upset, and then it's a whole thing, right? But no, if you got anybody out there who's watching, they're like an NHL player on their off season, could be a Jet, could be otherwise. You got to know, Winnipeg is gorgeous right now. It is friggin' nice out there. It's a beautiful day. And it gets like this for almost half the year if you're willing to squint and cheat with your math a little bit.
Yeah, well, it would have been nice to hang around in the playoffs long enough to show some of the guys that maybe what it can be like around this time. And who knows, maybe we'll get a draft one year. Right now, the big topics around the Winnipeg Jets certainly involve the offseason, which is fully underway. This is always a weird couple weeks because there's the lull after the team gets knocked out of the playoffs, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes. You're sort of focusing in on the second and third round while everyone else gets ready for the draft. But there's a few things in around the National Hockey League I just want to get into because I know once we get talking about the Jets, it will sort of dominate the convo. Big week for the league and a big week for the Chicago Blackhawks getting Connor Bedard. I don't think we really touched on the different possibilities and options. I mean, for the league, I think having him in a market like that with a historical team and original 6 teams is probably a good thing, especially not having him sort of lost on the West Coast. From a Jets fan perspective, we get a chance to see him a little bit more, but we also might be dealing with him for 15 years. What did you think about the way the ping pong balls dropped on Monday?
I mean, one of my earliest childhood memories of hockey is, turning on the playoffs in, 1990, guessing. And there's Eddie Belfour, and he's, in Chicago Blackhawks uniform. And it was just intimidating to me. Like, the kid version of me was like, this is what scary NHL players look like when they're in full competitive mode. And so, I've always just associated that team with postseason, with history, with glory, all of those sorts of things. I think there'll be a lot of folks around the NHL who like that idea, who also, though, there's going to be a lot of folks who just think about the Kyle Beach news, which has dominated, a lot of the Chicago discourse for a long time, and think, God, do these guys really deserve that? Like, do they really deserve Connor Bedard after, winning the cup under such an intensely horrible and negative situation that has come out in the years since then? So that's part of what enters the mind for sure. I also think that Chicago, moved from 5-1 to get Patrick Kane back in the day too. So there's a sense that, okay, these guys have had enough, and all of that. Like, I may have cheered for another team if I were, if I had my heart in where Connor Bedard went. That said, the opportunity to be media that watches Connor Bedard that often is exciting for me, and the idea that he'll be in the division. And I just want to watch great players. I wish I saw Connor McDavid play more often. I wish I saw Sidney Crosby play more often. Just so it's nice for me. Don't know how the fans feel.
We're going to circle back to the Blackhawks with something I want to ask you about the Winnipeg Jets and some of the decisions that they need to make. But just before we do that, got to ask you your thoughts on what has happened to the Toronto Maple Leafs in the second round, facing elimination tonight, as well as the Oilers, who, historically great power play, have looked great at times, but are still needing a win to avoid going down 3-1 tonight.
Yeah, I mean, how many of your Winnipeg-wide, Manitoba-wide listeners are just like in joy right now, with respect to that Toronto Maple Leafs on the verge of a sweep after?
There's a lot of them.
I'm sure the chat is lively. I don't know. Like, I believe that there's at least some chance that the emotions that went into overcoming that round 1 hurdle and slaying that dragon have played into this a little bit. I'm willing to believe that, once you set a goal or a target that intensely for so long, that there might be a lull that comes out of that. Another option is that Florida's a pretty darn good team. Another option is that despite creating plenty of scoring chances, the Big Four in Toronto is just not scoring. And, in a sample size as small as a playoff series, sometimes shit happens and you get beat. And it doesn't have to be that they're heartless or gutless or any of those sorts of things. I think the analytics show that they've been getting slot shots, that I've seen a video review that showed plenty of scoring chances from the Maple Leafs. But if the big guys don't get it done to the point where the puck actually ends up in the net, I mean, you run the risk of going down 3-0 to a quality Paul Maurice coached team over there in Florida. And I think it's just a combination of all of those things working to create, a snide Westerner's biggest happiness over there in that series between Florida and Toronto.
And then there's the Oilers. I'll be honest, Game 3 it gave me the heebie-jeebies of deja vu as to how the Vegas Golden Knights stepped their play up, particularly at 5-on-5, as the series went on against Winnipeg. And I mean, it had the feeling after Game 2, like the Oilers were actually up 2-1 in a series that only had 2 games being played. That is not the case, though, Murat. And, for all their great power play, they've been the second best team on the ice at 5-on-5. And even now going to Adin Hill, I think Vegas has a ton of momentum coming back. That being said, I expect a monster game from Connor McDavid tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Las Vegas's 5-on-5 play deserves credit. It deserves credit against Winnipeg in every game except for Game 1, I would say, and has deserved credit against Edmonton as well. They win the battles on the outside. They keep teams from getting to the inside. I saw a stat today that the Edmonton Oilers are getting more shots proportion-wise from their defensemen than from their forwards right now. And it's because of the way that Vegas plays, collapsing to the middle, and the dedication with which they're doing that. They've kept a certain amount of Edmonton to the outside. Obviously, they got lit up at times too. That's part of it. But at 5-on-5, they've played a really strong game, and I don't think they get a lot of credit for that, or perhaps sometimes not enough credit for that. If you're keeping the Edmonton Oilers with, Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, et cetera, more or less to the outside, often enough such that their D are getting all the shots, you're doing a pretty darn good thing. The other thing that Vegas has done so well is they expand out from collapsing in front of their net into transition and into offense up the ice with so much speed. It's incredible. And, that Mark Stone, Chandler Stevenson combination that burned Winnipeg a time or few has burned Edmonton a time or few as well, in addition to, Vegas's depth players scoring too. So, I think a lot of folks were thinking this is McDavid's year one way or the other. There's no way that they'll let that opportunity slide. Vegas is a pretty good team. They seem to have a lot to say about that.
Yeah, they absolutely are have something to say about it. Anyway, should be a real fun night tonight. Leafs early, Oilers late. Both the Canadian teams in action in the Stanley Cup playoffs. All right, Murat, let's get back to, I've been thinking about this since Monday night. How do you think winning the draft lottery for the Blackhawks changes their plan going into this season? I mean, they are abjectly the worst team in the National Hockey League. I know they finished third last, but that was thanks to a 13-game reverse heater by the Ducks at the end of the season, and obviously a lot of things happened with the Blue Jackets. But I mean, you look at this roster right now, and it is void of many competitive, even average NHL players. Do you think that having Connor Bedard now, that changes the level of maybe the willingness to speed up the rebuild? And the reason I bring this up is that, of course, they're going to need somebody to play with Connor Bedard, and I can't help but think that a guy like Mark Scheifele might be a perfect player that has been in the league, that's got a little bit of experience. That I'm sure there's some people that have different opinions on Scheif, but is overall a guy that does most of the right things, at least to make himself better, and obviously very, very talented offensively. And I guess we could throw Dubois in there too, although a different player. But do you think, the more I think about this, I'm like, if I'm Kyle Davidson, I don't want Connor Bedard coming into the league being on a team that wins 15 or 20 games, and that's sort of how you start. And you want to have someone that gets the most out of him as well. Are you at all interested in buying what I'm selling on this?
I'm plenty interested. I'm plenty interested. And, for me, I go back to historical comparisons. And I think, there's three stories I want to tell, and hopefully I don't get too long-winded by the end of it. You look at when Sidney Crosby came into the NHL and the success that the Pittsburgh Penguins were able to have because they were able to insulate him on a team with Mario Lemieux partially, with Zygmunt Palffy, with Recchi and Leclerc, as I recall as well, depending on the timing of the season. When you don't throw that young player to the wolves, and when you can surround them with talent, with professional work habits, with all of the standards of being an NHL player, sure, Pittsburgh didn't win immediately, but it was only a few years later when they were able to transition into Crosby's success. And I feel like a discussion of Bedard has to include these elite generational players. I think Pittsburgh did a phenomenal job of transitioning from veterans into the Crosby-Malkin-led era. And obviously one player can't do it. That's not how hockey works. Crosby's team needed other players. But I think that that's the model you're looking for. You fast forward a few years, when Edmonton starts winning all kinds of draft lotteries, you have Taylor Hall on that team, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Naila Yakupov, et cetera, from first overall picks. And what Edmonton does a really awful job of is surrounding them with enough veteran talent to stay competitive. And you saw, Taylor Hall gets moved. I think the rumor out of Edmonton was that he wasn't mature enough. I think that he won every shift he played. So that was kind of a moot point for me personally. But, it was a situation where they weren't able to transition from being an absolute bottom feeder to successful. And I think that part of that is the fact that Edmonton didn't have veteran insulation. It took Connor McDavid for that to really transform. But like we were just talking about, Connor McDavid is down 2-1 in the playoffs right now. Am I right? And he has yet to win a Stanley Cup, and he hasn't done it. He definitely didn't do it on his entry-level contract either. To use a Winnipeg Jets example, best team that Winnipeg ever had was with Patrick Laine, Nikolai Ehlers, Kyle Connor on entry-level contracts. Josh Morrissey was cheap. Jacob Trouba was cheap. Connor Hellebuck was cheap. Cap efficiency wins Stanley Cups. Winnipeg didn't win a Stanley Cup, but cap efficiency creates elite teams. It gave Winnipeg the opportunity to add. And so the opportunity I think Edmonton had wasted for a lot of years leading up to this, now that they've finally been able to build and get out of some of their cap hell. Connor McDavid's second and third years in the NHL, those 3 years of his entry-level contract, okay, 1 year he's a rookie, he gets hurt, but then there's year 2 and year 3 of that entry-level contract. We know entry-level contracts are artificially low. That was the single most cap-efficient contract in the history of the salary cap NHL era, and Edmonton wasn't able to build around him enough to create a viable go at a Stanley Cup. I think you want to be competing when your elite number 1 overall pick is still on that entry-level contract. And I know Chicago has a long way to go. Year 1, probably that's a lot to ask, but by year 2 or 3, if everything goes to plan, he'll either have the most cap-efficient contract in the history of the NHL, now that the cap is a little bit higher, or he'll be amongst the few elites in that regard. And I think that that's a tremendous weapon if you're the Chicago Blackhawks. And maybe this year is too soon to win, but I think you have to be looking at years 2 and especially year 3 of the Connor Bedard deal as an opportunity to win the Stanley Cup. And who would know better than the Chicago Blackhawks, who did that with cheap deals for Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane way back in the day? They should have the blueprint.
Well, and that's why I keep thinking about Scheif, because he's going to be looking at a spot, to go. If he's willing to sign an extension, it's going to be a place where he's going to have the opportunity to succeed. And I can't think of a better place if you're looking at, sort of the next 5-6 years of your career than plopped onto a line with, a guy that everyone thinks is a generational player and scorer. And the other thing about Chicago that's so interesting, Murat, is that there's far more to it than just, who you're giving up and who you're getting back. The Winnipeg Jets have some other things that need to happen. And part of it is moving some salary off the blue line. And the Hawks right now have a ton of cap room. And again, these aren't deals that are signed for 5 and 6 years. They're 1 year or 2 years for those defensemen, whether it's a Nate Schmidt, which is probably the most difficult one to move. Neil Pionk, we've talked about, even Brendan Dillon, Dylan DeMello. And if you're going to make room to give Heinola or a Declan Chisholm a chance to play, probably at least one of those guys is going to need to go. And, that could be part of it as well. And then I guess the question is, though, if you are making a move like that, what are you getting back? And the one thing that the Blackhawks don't really have is, any NHL players of the caliber that, would pop in and probably, even to a percentage point, half replace what a Scheifele or what a Dubois will. They certainly have picks. Pretty sure their first is off the table. They've got Tampa's pick. They've got 4 second-round picks. They've got another couple picks the next year. Do you see a possibility where the Jets would move a player like Scheifele that gets them some cap space, takes care of another issue on the blue line that we've been talking about for a couple years, but doesn't bring back that player that you can basically plug in the middle? It really is more futures and future assets, including draft picks, that the Blackhawks have been acquiring as they've done this scorched earth.
Yeah, that's a great question. And thinking through it, you want to look to Chicago's pipeline as who could step in and be a number 2 for now, or maybe grow into the future. And I think Montreal already traded for that player. His name was Kirby Dach.
Exactly.
Right? So that ship may have sailed. I'm not I'm at the point with the Jets where there are so many moving parts. You have to find some resolution for Dubois. Scheifele could be a trade chip. Blake Wheeler, I think we all assume, is on the way out. And then Connor Hellebuck, what can you possibly do to convince him to stay? I'm not sure. Where any combination of movement that involves those guys, I leave open as terms as possible. I don't know what's going to happen. And so then you start thinking, well, okay, what types of trade would they explore? I don't think Winnipeg has shown that, that wheel and deal, collect the assets just to spit them back out for roster players type of maneuvering. Like, this isn't Vegas where they're always moving assets in and out. So I think to myself, well, okay, if they do trade Mark Scheifele, to use your example, to Chicago for, a collection of first, second, some prospects, pure futures, are they then going to feel confident and able to pivot those futures into that Kirby Dach type player to help the Jets now? Or would that sort of signify a rebuild or retool proper? And I'm not sure. I don't think I've seen that agility from Kevin Cheveldayoff. To his credit, he's done really well when backed into a corner in terms of getting assets back for, Trouba or Laine or what have you. We've done that dance. We've explored all those examples. But like that type of dancing on your feet, if you're making the trade that you suggest, I'm not sure that Cheveldayoff can dodge the rebuild outright unless he's somehow managing to sign somebody that we don't anticipate it at this point.
Well, and this sort of ties into something I talked about with Reem. And again, I'm not putting this player in the category of Mark Scheifele or Pierre-Luc Dubois. But Max Domi's got ties to the city. He was born here. He's a point-a-game player right now with the Dallas Stars in the playoffs and came off a 60-point season on an absolutely terrible, 49 points in 60 games with the Blackhawks last year. He was a high pick. I think he would love the opportunity, if wherever he goes next, to try to play on a regular basis. And I mean, certainly the Jets will be a better team than the Blackhawks will be, although maybe he would be interested in going back and playing with Bedard. I'm not sure whether that's in the cards at all. But with the limited free agents that are out there, do you have time for Max Domi potentially being a guy that could come in and fill one of the holes if Dubois and Scheifele are ended up traded, like many people believe will be?
I should give him some credit because he's playing on a successful team right now in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I've never looked at Max Domi as a solution. I think that he's an offensively dynamic player. There's a sense that he's got a lot of competitive fire in him as well. But there's also, if you go metrics-wise, he's traditionally given up a lot back in the other direction as well. It seems to be easy for other teams to generate chances when Max Domi's on the ice. And
sounds familiar.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's exactly being the B-level version of the guy you're replacing, right? But I think Scheifele's got a better, obviously, and you've said that as well. He's got a better track record of outscoring his defensive issues than I think Max Domi has had. And so I think that with that type of signing, especially on a Winnipeg Jets team that is skill heavy and two-way soft, I would say, or light, I meant to say, I don't think Max Domi is a solution so much as a stopgap. And maybe you're buying time for future moves or trying to address what I imagine would be some pretty strong defensive shortcomings somehow else, because you're not getting it from Winnipeg's winger group necessarily. You're not getting it from center if Pierre-Luc Dubois is out and you're really left with Adam Lowry to take care of that. I mean, it's a move that teams make. Maybe it should be considered within the realm of realistic, and maybe it's part of adjusting our sights for the Jets that there might be some treading water in the next couple of years. I just don't see the player as a guy who's absolutely going to win his minutes and deliver value on the salary he'd likely get.
Yeah. No, I mean, I just think that, and we'll get into this right now with Dubois, that, depending on where these players can fit, and obviously Dubois is a unique situation because of, the belief that he'll end up in Montreal one way or the other, and maybe that sort of pushes the Jets into a corner, especially with this draft coming up. I mean, I think there would be or should be an attraction, to maybe try and get an extra pick or two in this draft right now, which certainly will help you in a couple of years. Are these kids going to be players next year? No. And you might need to fill a spot on a shorter-term deal. And that's why Domi, certainly the way he's playing right now with Dallas and, having a little bit of a renaissance, certainly with an offensive season this year on a terrible Blackhawks team. And the fact that this isn't just a guy. He does have some connections to Winnipeg, and we know what Ty said about here, that maybe there would be a connection. But Dubois, and again, there's so many possibilities with Dubois. I still certainly hope and have time for, the possibility of Dubois being traded to a team that is not the Montreal Canadiens. I think there's a lot of teams in the league, given their situation right now, knowing what Dubois could bring them even for one season, that would be more than willing to consider that. And I think they'd also have the confidence that they might be able to show him a great organization, a great opportunity to succeed, and maybe get him to sign that extension that doesn't seem to be happening here in Winnipeg. A lot of the French media have sort of been pushing to get this done and have been talking about post-deadline, the 5th overall pick going to Winnipeg for Dubois. Part of me thinks that that would be an absolute no-brainer for the Jets to do. Just, based, like, that makes sense. If you're trading a player like that, again, it does kind of push the window down of when you're going to get this player. And again, that opens up the need for a placeholder, if you will, like a Max Domi or whoever it is. But what do you see as the options? If the Jets realize, if they've already had this conversation, guys, we're not signing a long-term deal here, figure it out. I'll either play one more season and go as a free agent, or you can do something right now. The options for the Winnipeg Jets when it comes to either trading to Montreal and what that deal would look like this summer before the draft, or potentially elsewhere in the league.
Yeah, if you use Montreal, the ideal situations that come to mind are ones that I wonder if Montreal would have any interest in. And, I often use the example of Winnipeg wanting security long-term. You can't get that by extending Dubois. So maybe there's a younger version of him that you're hoping will turn into something almost as good, or maybe even better if you get lucky. And so that often means players on their ELCs, but more likely a second contract. And for me, that player, the perfect example of that player to me is Kirby Dach, who I think Montreal paid a lot to get and probably want to hold on to, and probably imagine him being part of a future that, is on its way up in the next couple of years. But for me, that's a player who I want to say I saw him good, just to mean that in the games that I've watched, he played particularly well. That's an example of a player who I believe could grow in a center role and not set you too far back in the immediate. But for plenty of reasons, I could see Montreal being hesitant to trade him. Similar with that 5th overall pick. In a draft that's supposed to be this good, and I'm not a prospect expert, I haven't done the research into this to ask them either, to say, okay, well, how good do we imagine the likely number 5 overall player to be? What's the projection on that? I mean, I think there's a lot of optimism about this particular draft. And I think that if you're the Jets, that's got to be an awfully palatable play, not only because he's probably going to be a great player, this number 5 overall, but you can sell it. When you're in a top 5 situation in terms of that, and you had to trade a player who was, popular with fans for most of his tenure in Winnipeg, and who is clearly still in the prime of his career, is 24 turning 25. I think when you're into the top 5, you can begin to pitch that as, okay, we've got something, we're building here. There's something to that effect. So I like those types of assets if you're able to get that. But I'm with you. Like, we've seen enough situations in the NHL where the thing we think is absolutely going to happen doesn't come true. And if you're Montreal, there may be impetus to not give anybody else an opportunity to sell Dubois on life there. And I'm not inside Dubois' head. What little I've been able to glean, I think it's important to be close to home. I think it's important to be in a metropolitan center. I think the things that light him up are, restaurants and fashion. And, he's always traveling in the off season to exciting places. So I'm thinking to myself, well, Montreal would be great for that. New York would be great for that. There's places like that. Heck, maybe even Chicago, to tell you the truth. And it may not be Montreal or bust. And again, I'm just guessing. So if you're the Canadians, maybe you don't want them to be able to put that sell job on. And that's an intriguing possibility too.
Yeah, and I mean, they'd need to be sold that he is a guy that would be a great fit for their club. You also have to talk about the fact that they'd have the ability to extend him right now. I mean, get a deal done and have cost certainty going forward beyond this season and, presumably 6, 7, even 8 years into the future, which when you're planning a team around a number of, good young players that are already there, number 1 pick overall last year in Cole Caulfield, I think there's a lot of things that do work. Now, the thing, if you bring in Dubois now, like, I'm sort of with you. I think Dach is a player that, would have great interest from the Winnipeg Jets. He's signed for 3 more years and then will be an RFA. I mean, that's the type of player Winnipeg will be looking for to get coming back. But I think with where Montreal has been the last few years, I think if you make that trade right now and get Dubois there and trade the pick instead of Doc, you really do set yourself up for being a much more competitive team this next season and going forward, along the lines of those young players being able to play and contribute potentially on ELCs, at least with Slavkovsky, which the more I think about it might make sense. Like when I first thought about this, I'm like, there's no way in hell the Habs would do that. But again, when you put all these together, I mean, if you're kicking it down the road, all of a sudden, Caulfield needs an extension and Slavkovsky needs an extension and Doc in 3 years will, and then you've got this pick that you just made. I mean, good problems to have. Obviously, you had to go through a lot of pain to get there, Murat, but I mean, to me, there's a lot of possibilities that I think people are sort of not assuming might be realistic that I think kind of might be in play when it comes to Dubois in Montreal and also elsewhere in the league.
I mean, I can't tell you in one breath that cap efficiency is the way and then deny that argument right here and now, right? Like, I think to look at what we've learned from Winnipeg over these last several years, where it seems like, 2024 is a bit of a ticking clock, but for a long time it was kind of, every season or every other season, one new young player would need a big contract, or there seemed to be this regularized, staggered approach to that. I think that that's good timing. I think that what it creates is a situation where the GM almost always has a problem to solve, and that means that there's plenty of work to do. But not having these 2024-esque D-days of contracts is probably a good thing. And I guess like a lot of people are out there probably setting their gardens or what have you. If you're one of those, you know that your work is literally never done. There's always something to do. It's got to be the same from a GM's point of view. And I think that your Dubois to Montreal solution now does create that scenario for Montreal. The only issue is then if you're Winnipeg and you're getting the call and it's okay, Christian Dvorak and a second round pick, and that's, you know what I mean? Like that's a tough spot to be in.
No, you don't do that. I don't think they do that. I mean, if it was for the pick, like think about it, they'd have Nick Suzuki, Pierre-Luc Dubois, and Kirby Dach as their top three centers. I mean, that to me immediately makes Montreal not a team that's in the mix for one of the top picks. I mean, potentially getting back into the playoffs next year. And I think with the young players and what their fans have been through, like winning is important. I know that they went through this rebuild and they had to hold their nose a little bit. And obviously had that crazy run during the pandemic to the Cup. But I mean, the Montreal Canadiens' plan is not to be bottom feeders for an extended period of time. And I do think a Dubois in the prime of his career right now quickly accelerates that process to get back to being a problem for teams in the East.
And you lay out that center depth like you just did. Yeah, like I want to build from that core. Absolutely. Like that's a situation where you can go forward, and then you have Caulfield and Slavkovsky and whomever else that you're playing on the wings in that situation. I mean, you guys got to believe in that. I think that like this idea of conservative until the moment that it's time to be aggressive, and then being aggressive is a great strategy within the NHL as well. I know last year to talk to, say, Arpin or Marc-Antoine, who write for The Athletic in Montreal, there was this big sense that they were sharing that, Montreal's content to be bad this year, i.e. this most recent, the year that's just passed. Not bad necessarily, but it's not the time yet. But when it does become the time, and maybe that's right now, it would be a matter of pushing, of going all in, to so to speak, in that moment, I think.
And I'm just looking, Cole Caulfield is, I guess he finished on the injury list. So he's an RFA this year. So he's going to need a new contract as well. You got 2 more years of Slavkovsky, and Wi-Fi there has 1 more year. Obviously he's not going to be getting a big raise like that. I mean, the funny thing is, you mentioned Dvorak. I mean, I'm not even sure that if the Jets were pushing for that pick and there's an appetite to make that trade, the Jets might not even be able to get Dvorak as someone that they're almost taking from Montreal to alleviate the cap space on their side of things that come back in. I don't know. We're going to have a lot of time to kick this stuff around. We didn't even get to a bunch of the things in the mailbag. Just give a quick plug. I really enjoyed it. Some great questions from some of your readers in The Athletic that's up right now. Just to fill people in on what they can find when they go check that out, Murat.
Yeah, it was one of those mailbags where, my process is, you can like our comments at The Athletic. So I sort by what's liked the most. Okay, great. And I was looking through like the top 10 or 15 questions, 20 questions, and being like, how am I going to answer these? Like there was some intensity and some difficulty and some need for proper research and all of that sort of stuff. And so that's a great summertime read for sure. And some of the key questions in the one that went up today are about Mark Chipman's involvement in decision-making within the Winnipeg Jets, about the economics behind should they be rebuilding? Is it responsible to try to squeak into the playoffs? Where does revenue meet expenditures and all of that sort of stuff there? So that's a fascinating topic to get into. We talked about Pierre-Luc Dubois' future as well, including what would be a really sly play, the 1-year offer sheet, which there's a lot of X's and O's, a lot of like ifs and ands and things like that to do with that. But we explored all of those options in there. One fan asked about Rick Bonus's hidden message.
This is my favorite. The third thing that he didn't tell us.
Yeah, he made a point to say there's a third thing and I'm not going to tell you. Like, why do that? Why not just say there are two things? You're sort of making a point of some kind, I think, in that moment. So I did my best to just speculate and guess my way through that. And sometimes in the summer, it's nice to just think out loud and be like, hey, you know what? I don't know this, but let's think for a while. Let's see what we really think about what the brass is saying.
Well, it was a banger, folks. Check it out at the Athletic, and who knows? I mean, I know we've got a few weeks until Nashville in the draft, but there's a lot of things that need to be figured out, I think, and whether they want us to know or not, I think some of those things may happen relatively soon, Murat. So fingers crossed we'll have a little bit more meat on the bone for Jets conversations over the next couple of weeks, and then get into what will be a very interesting month of June for sure.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me as always, man.
Appreciate it. There it is, Murat Atesh of The Athletic. Get there right now. It's a really neat bit, especially the bit on what Bones had to say with his very cryptic message there at the end. We've got some more hockey talk. Huge event coming to Manitoba we're going to talk about in just a minute. But as we said before, we've got Gold Eyes beginning next Friday is the home opener, and Bomber Camp is back, and that means our Bomber Reports, brought to you by Princess Auto, are back as well this season. Princess Auto, of course, proud sponsors in blue and gold. We'll be getting ready to get out to the Princess Auto tailgate before all the games this year. And Princess Auto, of course, is where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. 2 Winnipeg locations, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West. And you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. We're about to get a little greener outside, folks, but if you need help with irrigation systems, or maybe taking the cutting out of the equation with some artificial turf, Joe and the gang down at Consolidated Supply are your experts in that. Been dealing with the golf industry for decades. And of course, they're also the exclusive club car dealer in Manitoba if you need a new or used golf cart. But any irrigation needs you have for your property, they can help you out. And speaking of your property, other great options including hot tubs and amazing outdoor kitchens as well. And of course, small engine parts and repair. Pop by and see Consolidated Supply at their new showroom, open to the public at 1395 Niagara Road East, or you can find out more online at cte.ca. Well, big night tonight for the Buds and the Oilers. There probably still are a few of you that have hope. Well, maybe if you need a bit of a new gear before the playoff runs are over, you can get on down to Royal Sports, Manitoba's #1 sports superstore, with the biggest selection of licensed team gear featuring Jets, Bombers, NHL, NFL, tons of soccer gear and jerseys from around the world, and of course, Jays and Major League Baseball just in for the start of the season. Spring stock's also arriving daily. If you're getting out on the pitch or the diamond, soccer, baseball, softball, tennis, paddleball, and more, it's all there. And not to mention a huge selection of bicycles as well. Some really cool styles. Pop down and see them at Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. Follow on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina. And, I practice what I preach. I was saying yesterday might be a great day to get out with a few fellas and watch some of the games at your local Boston Pizza. Did exactly that. Hit up that new triple play platter with the cheesy Bandera bread, the cactus cuts, and the Thai chicken bites. Did not try the dill pickle spears, but everyone seems to be raving about those as well. The new menu for the playoffs is Fanalytics approved, and it's at your local Boston Pizza. And of course, if you're staying in tonight, not making it out, you can always order online at bostonpizza.com. I did try the new winged ribs, though. They were outstanding. Good stuff, and we'll see you at BP very, very soon. All right. This is a huge week here on the local junior hockey scene. We all know that the Winnipeg Ice are taking on the Seattle Thunderbirds in the Western Hockey League final. That begins on Friday night at Canada Life Centre. They've moved those games. But just down the highway in Portage La Prairie, home of the MJHL Terriers, we've got the Centennial Cup returning to Canada, to Manitoba, the National Junior A Championship. And of course, it won't just be the Terriers representing the MJHL. It will be the Steinbach Pistons, the champions of the league. And to get ready for the Centennial Cup, let's get the latest on it with Erik Swar from the MJHL. Erik, what's up, man? How are you?
Hey, good. Doing well. Glad to be here. Excited to get going tomorrow in Portage.
You know, this is such a great event, and I'm old enough to remember the event being here in Winnipeg at the old Winnipeg Arena back in the day when I was doing some stuff for the Jets in the 90s. I remember my brother and the Blues playing and going to the final there, in the 90s as well. It's been called the RBC Cup. It's moved around. But this Centennial Cup, kind of back to its roots and back here in Manitoba, going to be a great, great event. And obviously, you guys at the MJ must be so fired up to have two very, very good, very competitive teams competing and representing the province.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really excited. And, the format changed, I guess, last year. Prior to COVID, it was a 5-team tournament with the 4 regional winners and the host. And I guess last year, with COVID still kind of going on out east, they decided, let's bring every champion from every league across Canada and then including the host and have a 10-team tournament. So it really grew last year, and I know it was extremely successful. They loved the format, having each champion from each league involved in the Centennial Cup. So that's going to continue on here for the next few years like this until the foreseeable future. And like you said, we're extremely proud and happy and excited to have 2 great teams representing the Manitoba Junior Hockey League. I mean, a team in Steinbach who, fought their way to win the Turnbull Cup in 5 games against the Verdun Oil Caps. And they were kind of battle tested. They won the first round in 7 games, the second round in 6, and then the championship in 5. So great, strong team. And then you have the Portage Terriers who, they lost in the second round of our league playoffs. And they played Verdun in the second round with, I guess they had the flu running through their team, and they didn't have the result obviously that they wanted. But hats off to Verdun; they had a tremendous season and pushed them to elimination. And so, we're really excited with both teams and to have the event here in Portage with both teams playing each game in prime time. We couldn't ask for kind of a better setup for the MJ.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, for fans that are going to be getting out there to begin the festivities on Thursday night with the MJHL champion Steinbach Pistons taking on the Collingwood Blues, there is plenty of hockey, though. And I mean, it starts basically 11:30 a.m. on Thursday and runs through. And, unfortunate timing, to be honest, at the same time as the WHL final. But Friday night, for folks that aren't in Winnipeg, if you're out and around Portage, I mean, this is going to be probably be tough for you guys in the MJ office to know that the Terriers and Pistons playing against each other in such a big game, but a heck of a way to start off the first Friday of the tournament.
Yeah, honestly, it couldn't get any better than that. They were the top 2 teams in the regular season throughout. They finished 1-2. Portage finished at the top, like I was talking about. They couldn't quite get it done there in the playoffs, but it should be extremely exciting. And there's actually a package that the host committee put together just for MJHL fans, so you can get every MJHL game involving the Terriers and the Pistons, and then all playoff games. So that's available at the Stride Place reception there in Portage or online. And all the games are streamed online through the Hockey Canada website for free. So fans that are looking to check out some great junior A hockey from around the country and here in Manitoba, they can find it easily.
Yeah, and that package for the MJ teams, I mean, it's a 7:30 game every night because that is when the Manitoba teams are playing. Very convenient for folks that are working that still want to get out. But let me ask you this, and I'm not sure how much you know about the other teams that are coming in, represented the other leagues. I mean, I look at a team like the Brooks Bandits that always seems to be showing up in the Centennial Cup. I believe Timmins has been there in the past. But it's great. I mean, you've got maritime hockey teams. Is there one team to beat right now? Is there a favorite, you would say, or at least as people are assuming going into this event?
Yeah, out west you have the Brooks Bandits. They're going for their third national championship here in a row, so they've kind of got a target on their back, and they have a lot of high-end players. I think their whole roster is committed to play NCAA Division I at some point here, so they're definitely a top dog, so to speak. And even the Battlefords North Stars from the SJHL, just our province, our neighbors to the west of us, they had an incredible season. I think they only had a couple regulation losses all season long, and they just about swept their way through the SJHL playoffs. So I know both of those teams quite strong, and both have targets on their back. But yeah, it's pretty neat to see teams you wouldn't typically see. Like you mentioned, the Yarmouth Mariners from Nova Scotia, and you have, I'm not even going to try to speak French here, but the team from Quebec. And it's just really cool to get to see all these teams and lots of high-end talent. And I think Steinbach and Portage are going to do a great job. And I think, Portage, they had a strong team all season, and for them to get knocked out of the playoffs in the second round, I think teams might not understand that they're actually a really good team and they have a ton of talent on their rosters. So I know they're going to do a great job and just represent us really well. And the crowds, from what I'm hearing, ticket sales have been really good. So it should be a great atmosphere. I think it holds about 2,500 fans there in Portage. So when the place is jammed full and rocking, it's quite the place to be.
Well, with 10 teams coming in, I mean, there's plenty of opportunities to get in. The playoffs will begin the following Friday, right through the weekend. And you mentioned the capacity there. I mean, what a venue they have. I mean, for a long time, I remember taking the bus out to the Portage rink, and, it, like many rinks, needed some improvement. Well, they got their spot. And, let's put it this way. You don't host the Centennial Cup without a venue like Portage La Prairie has for something like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're no stranger to hosting the event either. I know they were hosts back in 2015 when they won the tournament. They beat the Carleton Place Canadians from the Central Canada Hockey League. And from everything I can remember and all the stories I've heard, it was amazing. The building was full every night the Terriers played. And it's a great junior A hockey rink. It doesn't get much better than that. So great venue. I know the host committee has been at it here for quite a while, as the Terriers were supposed to host in 2020 originally, and obviously COVID wiped that clean. Here we are already. I can't believe it's 2023 and we're just about to start off with the Centennial Cup. So really looking forward to it. And I know the Portage faithful are going to be out in droves.
Yeah, if you go to the Hockey Canada website or just Google Centennial Cup, you'll go to a landing spot. And then if you do want tickets, it'll take you over to the Stride Place spot. And you got the full tournament package. You got an evening package, which will be catching the Manitoba Junior League teams as well. Individual tickets. And then, of course, the playoff games coming up a little later on. Erik, listen, hopefully we'll see you out at the rink. Definitely going to try and get out and take in a few games. And fingers crossed that the Pistons and the Terriers can rep the MJ well and be playing some meaningful games, not this weekend, but the following weekend out at Stride Place at the Centennial Cup.
Yeah, you said it. Really looking forward to it. And go Manitoba. Thanks for having me.
Right on. Thanks, Erik. There's Erik Swar from the Manitoba Junior Hockey League Centennial Cup. Going to be awesome. I'm definitely going to be making the trip out for a couple of the games after the show. Heck, maybe next week we'll get down there if the teams do well. Maybe we'll try and bang out a show there heading into the long weekend out there. Again, Centennial Cup National Junior A Championship begins Thursday night in Portage La Prairie. Thanks to Erik for joining us on the program. Man, that is going to be a weekend, huh? We go into May long. We'll have the Centennial Cup happening right now. That Friday night is the Goldeyes home opener. And then Monday is the opening night for Assiniboia Downs with 50 days of live racing, and myself and Remis going head-to-head with our daily picks. Cannot wait for that. Get ready for it. We'll have Kurt back on next week after he dropped the winner of the Kentucky Derby, Mage, with us on Friday's show. We've definitely rebooking him on the Friday for the Preakness, but we'll also have Darren Dunn join us from Assiniboia Downs next week to get us ready for an entire season of live racing out at Assiniboia Downs. Folks, I mentioned this is blizzard weather outside right now, the good kind. It's also beer weather. And, our friends at Little Brown Jug were thinking of the summer when they dropped the new generic lager. Your basic lager, just better. Impressively standard in the best way. Light and clean to taste with a mellow flavor and crisp finish. Now, Manitoba can support local without having to move away from the domestic taste they've come to expect with a light beer. Check that out wherever you get your favorite beers. Pop by the tap room as well. And keep an eye out. I have been noticing it on tap in a few spots in the city, including the Osborne Tap House down in the Village. Shout out to our friends at Little Brown Jug. Local delivery also available. Find them online at littlebrownjug.ca. Dusty was on earlier. We did hit up our picks for the Byron Nelson on the PGA Tour. You can check that in the lock shop. We're counting down the days, though, till the RBC Canadian Open. Manitoban Erik Cockrell's going to be in it. And probably be a few people heading out to watch him from these parts. But tell you, the big story right now is the course is being open, and Breezy Bend is the place to be. We've had such a great relationship with Corey and the gang there over the years, and I cannot wait to get out and play. Have to bring out Weber there for his continued Manitoba golf tour. But it was one of Manitoba's top private clubs, championship course, top-notch practice facilities, and the best 19th hole around with their amazing course-side patio. Find out more about becoming a member of breezybend.ca or give our pal Corey Johnson a call at the clubhouse and help you out with all the details on maybe making that your long-term golfing home for you and your family. And speaking of golfing, the other thing we're doing this summer is fishing. Cannot wait to get out to Aikens Lake. Longtime listeners know, really back to the H&L days, how much fun we have had at Aikens. I mean, it truly is a paradise in our own province where you can be on the air, on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg, including the flight up there. And once you're there, as great as the world-class fishing is, the hospitality from the Terrens and Pat and the gang that run the place is literally second to none, and that's why they have so much repeat business from both sides of the border. Find out more about the Aikens experience. Hit them up at aikenslake.com, or you can also send our pal Pitt Terren a message at pitt@aikenslake or at aikenslake on Twitter. Right on, let's get Remo back in here. Tell you what, Remo, and I obviously have long ties and history with the Manitoba Junior Hockey League, but this Centennial Cup is going to be fun. And the fact that they've expanded it to a 10-team tournament, I think really takes it to the next level. I mean, for a long time, the Manitoba team would always have to play the Saskatchewan winners in the Anavet Cup, and the winner of that would represent Manitoba and Saskatchewan. I love the new format, getting a chance to see teams from all across the country, and man, it's going to be a fun 10 days down the highway in Portage.
Yeah, that sounds awesome, having teams from all over, as you said. And I keep hearing Centennial Cup. I heard Ron McLean mention it on Hockey Night in Canada. I was like, what is this? And then Erik came on and said, oh, it used to be called what, like TELUS?
Yeah,
Cup.
RBC Cup, TELUS Cup were
it
the
had
sponsors. But
so many names, and yeah, it just confused me. This Centennial, like, should I know what this is? I feel like I should, but as you said, it had all the previous names. Pretty cool. One thing I always think about, Huss, is you look in the U.S., how big college sports are, football and basketball, and I feel like we haven't really replicated that here with, junior Memorial Cup's popular, junior hockey, but not even close to the level. A university sport, we get excited if the Bisons are in the Vanier Cup, definitely. But I don't know. I feel like Canada, there's room to grow for all of these junior level sports, much like NCAA in the U.S. It's just so massively, like talk shows in some of those cities, just all NCAA.
Oh, listen, dude, if you go down to the South well, not even just in the summer, I mean, pretty much 12 months a year, I mean, it's SEC football that's driving the needle for most of those shows. Now, professional sports, the National Football League is certainly right up there, but the NFL is number 2 in a lot of those markets. And, you do make a great point. I mean, I think in a lot of the communities where these teams are, they get great support, throughout the season. The Terriers are certainly very well supported. The Steinbach Pistons, since they were born, have had great crowds and really local support. Where it's really dropped off is in the cities. I mean, we remember at times where there was the Winnipeg South Blues, the St. James Canadians, the North Stars. At times, 3 to 4 teams in the MJ right here from Winnipeg, and obviously that's dropped off because it wasn't financially feasible. All that being said, I'm with you. Would love to see that continue to grow at levels outside of the professional ranks. But this will be a great event. I mean, just as far as if you want to see a really, really high level of hockey, a number of these players, are playing in this league because they want to maintain their NCAA eligibility as opposed to losing it once they play in the Western League. So there'll be a ton of talent, and I certainly suggest people get out there. It gets underway on Thursday out at the Stride Center out in Portage.
I'll apologize. I misspoke. It was the Royal Bank Cup, RBC, from 96 to 2018.
Oh, yeah. Telus, I think, was the
Telus is that's still around.
Younger,
that's still around.
Under
that's
16 or under 15. Bantam,
under
Bantam
18, yeah. I got mixed up. But, there's so many of these, but maybe we should, this Centennial Cup sounds like a great event there down the road in Portage.
Yeah, we'll check in at some point next week with how things are going. But a big WST good luck to Steinbach and Portage representing the MJ at the event. All right, let's get to the Coolbet Lines because we got some games tonight, folks. And the Toronto Maple Leafs are facing elimination, much to the delight of many of you in the chat. The Leafs were minus 123 favorites earlier, and the Leafs are such a public team. Often that number goes one way, let's go on the other. And I think people are officially 100% off the bandwagon. They have left the Leafs for dead. They've said it's over. And I'll be honest, that's the reason why I think the Leafs actually win tonight. There's no way. This is that they can't possibly be swept by the Florida Panthers bet tonight. Minus 114, Leafs on the money line. Panthers just south of even money at minus 103. They opened at plus 105. What do you think about that? Will we have a game 5 in this series, or will the Leafs get humiliated and swept by Paul Maurice's Florida Panthers, the team with the lowest point total that qualified for the Stanley Cup playoffs?
I put a poll out, Huss. I know who. I see T. Will in chat putting the brooms out already.
Is Waiters here? Waiters is down with the blue and white, right?
He's a big blue and white guy.
Yeah, there he is. They're Waiters. Leafs in 7.
He says Leafs in 7. Wow. I think they got to win 1 for sure. This team's too good to be swept. The first 2 games were too close. I think they push back tonight. And win.
I love Waiters, our resident, sometimes Leaf fan, Joseph Brick Wool.
Yeah,
that's a great nickname for Wool. He's going to need to be that way. What a way! What does he have? 13 games in the NHL, and now he's starting with the team facing elimination after Samsonov, and that sparked another big conversation about just how ugly that Matt Murray pickup is looking for the Leafs. I think he's owed $8 million next year. Sens are paying $2 million. Leafs are paying $6 million on the book for $4.6 million, and apparently healthy, but will not get the start tonight with their season on the line.
Kind of crazy, the Matt Murray situation, but I think they hasn't played for a while, and they don't want to throw him in there. Or that's what the excuse has been, or he just hasn't been good enough. One thing that has been interesting this round of the playoffs is that every team has gone with 2 goalies now that Grubauer was pulled the other night, and you've seen a pretty interesting stat that there hasn't been a team left that has used just 1. And
well, that also speaks to how lopsided some of these wins have been.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean it's been as we said at the start of the show, it's been a terrible second round. I mean, the second round is usually a letdown because you're not as many games, but now the games aren't even close, and every game's a blowout, and it's so weird because they're all good teams. So I don't know what's going to happen here tonight, but the 2 Canadian teams in action, I'm excited for that, and I think Toronto wins. I think Edmonton wins. Edmonton wins too. So we'll see.
Well, good. I hope you with it. We'll get to our exclusive in a minute. The Oilers are minus 178. Vegas plus 150. We were kicking around a couple of things. I'm calling it right now. I think McDavid has a monster game tonight. He's plus 170 for over 2.5 points. And there's also an exclusive where McDavid 3+ points and an Oilers win is plus 230. You would think that would be automatic if McDavid gets 3 points that they win the game. However, considering last week we had guys score 4 goals back-to-back nights and both lose, maybe it's not a guarantee. That being said, take your pick on those ones. Vegas Golden Knights, by the way, plus 150 on the money line. And we check over the exclusives. Our lock shop one, we talked about it with Dusty, but if you missed that earlier, he's got one. McDavid and Draisaitl both to score, a point for Evan Bouchard, Oilers to win in regulation, and over 5.5. That one opened at plus 625. It's now plus 600 or 6-1. And Remis likes the Leafs and Oilers. So do I tonight. We're going to pair that with the Warriors minus 6.5. I think they win by 20 in this game. And the Lakers will take the feet off the gas. They'll look to win it at home. That one, we opened at plus 500. Obviously, there's been an action on that, but plus 485 right now are 2 exclusives over in the lock shop. And yes, as far as the NBA goes, there are 2 games tonight. The Warriors are 7.5-point favorites at home against the Lakers. That was 7 earlier. And the Knicks are down to their last out, but they are favored tonight at home. Minus 159 at home to the Miami Heat. I haven't watched a lot of the early games, Reem, but I have watched some of the late games after the hockey ends. We'll tune into the NBA. Lakers-Warriors has been a lot of fun to watch. And the team that no one seems to respect, but I'm riding with the Nugs, led by Canadian Jamal Murray and Jokic. Big win last night. They're 1 win away from moving on to the West Final and taking on the winner between the Lakers and Warriors.
Yeah, it's an awesome West Final, whoever that's going to be. And shout out to Jamal Murray, he had last year off with the knee injury recovering, and he's back, and they're kind of back to where they were before he was hurt. One thing here, back to NHL, I just wanted to look at the prop for, I think any of the Leafs, core 4, is that what they're calling the core 4? They haven't scored. They didn't score. They don't have a goal from Marner, Matthews, Nylander, Tavares. So I don't know who's the worst one on the odds. Nylander plus 180. Where's Marner plus 190? They're all around the same. So
I wonder is there one for all those guys to not score?
You'd have to parlay them together. I'm
just thinking that there might be something in the exclusives.
Oh, you should call them. Be like, hey, can you do an exclusive for the Leafs core 4, no goals?
Yes, core 4 to be shut out. What's the number on that?
Yeah,
to hit 4 in a row. Well, as I said, Leafs and Panthers starting it off early, and then the Edmonton Oilers and Vegas Golden Knights a little bit later on. We do have some hoops tonight, and tomorrow. Kind of opening night for the Jays. By the way, I know the Jays are playing in the afternoon. Is that game started already?
I'm not sure. I know what happened yesterday.
3:05 p.m. So basically, if you do want to get on that great matchup, Gossman and Wheeler. Tough one last night for Manoah. And by the way, Rio, remember all my statements about Kikuchi going into this season, that this was going to be Kikuchi's year and everyone was nuts for writing him off? Guess who has the best ERA of any Blue Jays starting pitcher right now? Kikuchi.
Really? No.
Yes.
Yeah, really?
Yes.
Yasiel?
He's had a great start to the season.
He was good on Seattle, and thankfully, Blackgoro Jr., he had an injury over the weekend, rested Monday, and he was back in the lineup yesterday. I have him fancy, so there was some concern on my end, but they did lose yesterday. Aaron Nola, one of my favorite pitchers, shut him down yesterday. So Jays and Phillies back at it, I guess, right now, 3.
Yeah, couple things, just notes on our way out. We do have the Joseph Walls we mentioned starting for the Leafs. We touched on that, and it is Aiden Hill. The Knights have had no update on Laurent Brossoit, but I mean, if you're watching that game, that did not look good. I don't think he'll be back anytime soon. And how about this? The Raptors are interviewing J.J. Redick for their vacant coaching job. All you need to do is spend some time on First Take, and next thing you know, you're in line for NBA coaching gigs.
Yeah, what is this with
They
TV?
should interview Stephen A.
Yeah, what's going on here? Picking TV guys for coaching jobs? I don't know. Don't you want to go with someone who's coached before. I know Brooklyn went with Steve Nash. Like, he didn't have a lot of coaching
That
experience.
didn't work very well.
I like JJ Redick, as you said, good on TV, but does that translate? I don't know.
Hey, I mean, I don't know. He seems like a pretty smart dude. Obviously, his entire life has been in basketball. But it is interesting that guys like in the NHL. Well, Marty St. Louis went from basically no coaching experience running practices for 12-year-olds to coaching the Habs. I mean, we know what he signed up for, which was a miserable season last year, but I think he might have a future going forward. Well, anyways, that is certainly something that, Raptor fans will be paying attention to. And we never even talked about Bud getting fired in Milwaukee. I mean, they had such a good run, but, you lose, even with your top player injured, losing the way they did to the Miami Heat. It was curtains for the Bud era after winning that championship in Milwaukee with the Bucks.
Yeah, speaking of bringing TV guys into, a management role, Frank Saravalli reported on Daily Faceoff, Huss, that the Flyers are about to, they're on the verge of announcing a new president. They've narrowed it down to Eddie Olczyk and Keith Jones, two guys who are on TNT, so two TV guys. Keith Jones has been a Flyers analyst. They're looking for a president of hockey ops to be on top of Danny Briere and be the face of the organization with Briere and John Tortorella. And again, I find that interesting that you would bring in a guy who's been on TV. Like, president, that's a president. That's a pretty big role. Yeah. I don't know. I think
did Biz get an interview? He's on TV now.
Yeah, he's on TV. I don't know. So Keith Jones, I think he's pretty close to the organization. Eddie Olczyk was in Chicago, and now he's doing TV in Seattle, as with TNT. But I don't know. I always think you need a business guy in that role. But maybe it's just more of a figurehead. And
I have no idea what these presidents do and whether they're really involved in day-to-day or whether they are just someone to kind of have a buffer in between ownership and the general manager that can kind of glad hand one and give some guidance to the other. Listen, I'm not sure anyone wants to really emulate what Philly's been doing with all of their changes over the last little while and while they are right now. Well, we'll see you tomorrow. We'll have some more Jets talk. Looking forward to having Billick and Rewicki on with us. And we're going to hit him with some of those topics that we had today, talking about potential deals for the centers that we've just been discussing. Yeah,
a couple quick Jets topics. We didn't mention Leon Gavanka signing a 4-year deal in Germany, leaving the Moose. He'd been with the Moose for a couple seasons, and I'm sure he figured, his chances of getting to the NHL, not exactly. There was a number of guys ahead of him, so he was like, I'll go home to Germany and play pro.
Yeah, he had 20 goals last year, a really good season, but, wasn't a guy that ever seemingly was really in the mix to be called up. And listen, this is no slight on Gavanka. There are players that, end up being great players at the American Hockey League level, at European, that, just don't end up clicking in the NHL. Now, some will say he never really got a chance. I mean, there's a bunch of guys that, frankly, were held back by a more veteran defense corps this year. But I think it's pretty clear that if he did think that there was NHL opportunities, he probably would have stuck around. But great for Leon. He goes back home. He's going to got a nice 4-year deal with Mannheim. He'll get to play in his own country. And, of course, he'll get to play at the World Championships. And everywhere else the Germans are able to compete, he will be one of those guys. So a nice run with the Manitoba Moose and a very important player for this team, obviously. Would have loved to have still be playing right now after the heartbreaking way the team was bounced by the Milwaukee Admirals on the weekend.
Yeah, he played 4 seasons with the Moose and was a 5th-round pick in the 2017 NHL entry draft, 136th overall. And there's only a couple players that have played a ton of games who were drafted in that round. So he played here, saw that he was pretty roadblocked, and went home. Good for him. Getting a nice 4-year deal.
I think of Justin Kurtz. I think of Brett Hauer back from the early Moose days of guys that were really, really effective at this level that for whatever reason just weren't NHL players. So and a lot of those guys end up going to Europe and having great careers and living a great lifestyle with their family. So shout out to Leon for that. That I don't believe will be the case for Ville Heinola or Declan Chisholm, but part of the reason why we got into, we're focusing so much right now, Remo, when it comes to potential trades for the Winnipeg Jets on Hellebuck and the 2 centers in Scheifele and Pierre-Luc Dubois. One thing that needs to be discussed is how the roadblock on the defense gets settled, or moving prospects that will be available on waivers, because both of those players have done enough right now at the AHL level, and especially with Ville being a first-round pick. You can't let that sort of thing walk away. I think you need to know one way or the other. And both of those guys have certainly paid their dues and done a great job with the Manitoba Moose. Will they be able to earn spots on the roster next year? And will there be room for them is another thing that, might not be getting as much ink as the future of the big stars on the Winnipeg Jets, but it's certainly something that's important to consider and we'll be talking about.
Well, we said this all summer. Okay, you got to move out one of your veteran D and bring in some scoring depth. And they never did that. And, the big question in the preseason is how many games is Ville Heinola going to get into? And it wasn't many. And now you have another guy, Declan Chisholm, he's no longer waiver exempt. You're going to have to make a decision there. So you have all these veteran D. And everyone was saying at the deadline, well, bring in a D, bring in a D. They probably would have moved out a D earlier if they thought they could have. So I'm curious how that is going to shake out.
Well, it was quite clear that there was no confidence that either of those guys were going to play and help the team win games this year. I mean, I think that, do you like to give a guy some experience? Could he play? Part of me thinks, and I feel bad saying this because I like Ville Heinola and I hope that he can turn into a great player for the Winnipeg Jets and prove a lot of people wrong. Part of me thinks from what we've seen of Ville that he's certainly a capable NHL player and a guy that can play a lot on sort of a bad team. I'm not sure that, when we look at what's happening in the playoffs right now, I'm not sure that he, can be a difference maker at that top level playing the type of playoff hockey that we're seeing right now. And I'm not sure that's not like a completely finished take because I think he deserves more opportunity to show, but I don't know whether you agree or not. I mean, it just seemed like that the physicality was an issue at times, and a lot of the things that he was able to do so comfortably at the American Hockey League level, a lot harder to do at the NHL level, and you wonder if that translates.
Yeah, played 10 games this year with the Jets, had 1 point, was -5. We'll have to, I don't know, I'm not sure, but we do know there is no room for him, the former first-round pick, 20th overall in 2019, so if they do want to make room, you're going to have to trade out some of these veteran guys that all have years remaining, except for, Dylan
Big Stan.
Big
Stan is the other guy, is the other big question mark as to what happens with him and if he's traded, what sort of value you get. Because there would be a roster spot, not necessarily a spot in the top 6 right now, with Dylan Samberg really cementing down, in my opinion, likely a top 4 spot for next year. But I'd be surprised if one of the Jet defensemen that played in the playoffs isn't elsewhere by the start of next season.
Well, that's what we said. That's what we said last summer. That's what we said. We'll see. And speaking of Samberg, I don't think we mentioned this yesterday, but we did mention last week he was named to Team USA. He's their top pair D at the Worlds. So that's good to see. And I know we got to wrap this up. One more thing. Derek Taylor is at Bombers rookie camp. You know who's out there today?
Zach
First
Collaros.
day. Zach Collaros, all QBs are there. And also, remember this guy? Carlton Agudosi, receiver.
How could we forget him from that game? Was it the Calgary game that he had the 2 touchdowns?
Yeah,
he was
amazing
huge.
touchdowns.
He looked amazing.
He looked like Calvin Johnson on those touchdowns. So he's on the field first time since his ankle injury. And Derek Taylor also says Willie Jefferson and B.A. Brandon Alexander walking around. It looks like they're ready. B.A. was injured last year. And I don't know. Do you want training camp play-by-play? Are we here for Bombers rookie camp play-by-play tweets?
I don't know about play-by-play tweets. However, we will reach out to Eddie and try and get him on Friday for a little bit of a Bomber main camp preview and a little bit of what he's seen from the last couple of days.
Yeah. So we're not here for Bombers training, but we are excited for the what did you say? 13 days?
Yeah, until things get going. I know Dusty's here for the preseason game on June 2nd.
Okay.
That's the home preseason game.
Let's party.
So we've got basically that's 3 weeks from Friday. And I think they go on the road first before that. So, yeah, we're ready to go. And I know we hit Coolbet Lines earlier, but yeah, if you are horny for lines for the Canadian Football League, win totals and whatnot, Rusty and I'll break them all down on the Lock Shop probably on Friday's show. But it's all up there right now over at coolbet.com. All right, we got to get out. This was a fun show today. Thanks to everyone that jumped on. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already, and definitely hit that red subscribe button as well. Don't forget you can find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts. For those of you that have found us on YouTube, just go and search Winnipeg Sports Talk wherever you get your favorite pods. And if you are a podcast listener, pop by YouTube sometime and make sure to hit that red subscribe button. Helps us grow the channel. Thanks to Erik Swar. Good luck to everyone out in Portage, the Volunteers, the MJHL, Hockey Canada, in putting on the Centennial Cup. Big good luck to the Pistons and the Terriers representing the MJHL. Thanks to Dustin Nielson for joining me today. Don't forget to check out the Lock Shop wherever you get your podcasts, or on YouTube at Lock Shop Bets. And, of course, Murat, who's got that great new mailbag piece up at The Athletic. For Michael Remis, I'm Andrew Paterson. Thanks to the sponsors that make this show happen every day, and all of you for making us a part of yours. We'll catch you tomorrow.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.